Chapter 424. All right, friends and spectators, now let us enter the next round of the competition. Zhuan activated his spirit chi and shouted excitedly. The spectators around immediately shouted out in a frenzy, echoing Zhu Wen's words. The participants all focused their attention on the cards in their hands. Once it lit up, it meant that they were about to enter the stage. The first few matches are mostly participants from Group C and D. It looks rather boring, Sai. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have taken the 500,000 cultivation coins reward. Why did I become a judge? So boring, Judge Lu Gu yawned and said with an exhausted look. Although the battle prowess of the people in Group C and D is low, there might be some skilled people. They can use their ingenious battle skills to make up for their low cultivation level. This way, there might be something worth watching. Brother Lu, just keep watching. Zhang Guahao laughed and said, but I'm still looking forward to Han Yu Xian's match. Although Shen Wuya is not bad, but compared to Han Yu Xian, he is still lacking, and the participant that Shen Wuya is fighting against has a low cultivation. I am afraid that he will not even be able to unleash 10% of his strength. I hope that in the next match, he will be able to meet an evenly matched opponent. The white-haired lady Li Gue Fong said, Shen Wuya's foundation is not bad, and his Blade Godsword Saint Arts truly lives up to its name. If I were to spar with him, I would have to be careful. If the competition starts, and they have the intention to kill someone, I am afraid that the few of us will not be able to stop them. Lu Gu squinted his eyes and laughed. Just then, a cold snort came out from the side. It was Xiao Ziru. Her eyes were cold as she looked at the participants' seats and said, What are you afraid of? They're just a group of juniors. Can't you suppress them? Lu Gu laughed dryly, but did not say anything else. Whoosh! Just then, a light aura blossomed once again. He had appeared from Group B's zone. Seeing that, everyone raised their heads and looked at the person holding onto the light aura card, only to realize that it was a man wielding dual blades. The man was 8 m tall, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, a mole at the corner of his mouth. His entire body was filled with muscles. It's Lifestealer Dual Blades, Chu Shan. Lifestealer Dual Blades is coming out. Haha, this is going to be interesting. If the other contestant isn't from Group A or B, then there's basically no way to fight. The Life-Seizing Dual Blades is the Chu family's ancestral blade technique. The blade is outstanding for its speed and accuracy, but the most difficult thing to comprehend is its strength. It is said that Chu Shan's dual blades can split a mountain into 3 sections and create a canyon. It is very powerful. Is that so? Who knows who's going to be unlucky? I hope he doesn't pick me. I don't want to go against him. The participants discussed amongst themselves. A few of them had pale faces, as though they were already afraid of the life-seizing dual blades Chu Shan, while there were others who were extremely excited, as though they could not wait to go up and fight with him for 300 rounds. Only the members of Group A remained calm and collected, without any restlessness. The life-seizing dual blades Chu Shan did not give up. He flipped up the stage and stabbed the 2 blades in his hands into the stage. He crossed his arms and looked down on everyone. Arrogant? No, this was confidence. He seemed to be certain that he would be the winner of this match. This action caused the audience to cheer intensely. Some of Chu Shan's fans were already shouting his name excitedly, cheering for their idol. Whoosh! Just then, another light aura soared into the sky. Everyone anxiously looked towards the light aura, but regretfully realized that the light aura actually came from Group D. A participant from Group D. All right, the next participant has been chosen. It is participant Su Yun from Group D. The host, Zhu Wen, shouted loudly. But when he said that, the spectators all started to gasp. Why is it another person for Group D? Can't you see that Group D has the most participants? It's reasonable for him to draw someone from Group D. Who the hell is this Su Yun? I've never heard of him before. I think he will finish him off in one move. I am here to watch the competition, and not to watch a useless person being taught a lesson. This competition is truly boring. The spectators all started to grumble. The competition had not even started, but there were already people calling for a change of participants and for Group A and B to go up. Zhu Wen cleverly pretended not to hear them and continued. Now, let's invite participant Su Yun up. His voice spread out, causing everyone's gaze to land on Su-Yun. Su-Yun looked left and right, then walked towards a young servant at the corridor and took out the cultivation coin card from his storage ring. Help me place a bet. This card has 100,000 cultivation coins. Bet it all on me winning. Su-Yun laughed. Hearing that, the servant's face turned pale and said softly, "The competition has a rule. Participants are not allowed to fake the competition. Once they are discovered, they will be immediately killed without mercy." Who said I want to fake the competition? I said bet on me winning. Unless Lifestealer Dual Blades, Chu Shan wants to fake the competition. Su-Yun said indifferently. Hearing that, the servant then reacted. Su-Yun wanted to bet on him winning, and not on Lifestealer Dual Blades Chu Shan. She was startled. Her mind was filled with shock. Is he sick in the head? Does he think he can win against Lifestealer Dual Blades Chu Shan? Chu Shan had obtained third place in the New Deer City's rookie competition 3 years ago. Does he have the strength to do so? Although it was just a small competition, to be able to obtain third place proved Chu Shan's strength. The servant looked at Su-Yun and realized that he was serious and did not have any intention of joking. She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Since Master insists, then this servant will go." "Go." Su-Yun laughed. The servant nodded her head, then ran towards the betting area. Seeing that, Su-Yun immediately turned and walked towards the competition grounds. "Hey, why are you so slow? Are you afraid? If you can't do it, then quickly give up and avoid suffering." A few spectators stood up and shouted at Su-Yun. Su-Yun ignored them. He went closer to the stage, flipped his body, and jumped up. Another boring competition. Below, the leader Lu Gu yawned, his right hand supporting his cheek as he spoke lazily. However, the other three were not like him. They were completely focused on Su-Yun. This person seems to be different from the other Group D participants. Zhonghua Hao said softly. "Is it Qi?" "No, it's a concept," Xiao Ziru, who was by the side, said. Lu Gu opened his eyes and looked at Xiao Ziru. Clang! Just then, the bell for the start of the competition came out. The competition begins. Zhu Wen's shout marked the start of the competition. Su-Yun extended his hand towards the sword sheath behind his waist. He took out 2 gray sub-swords and held them in his left and right hands. Chu Shan, who had his hands crossed, snorted and said arrogantly, "I use dual blades, and you use dual swords? What? Are you provoking me? Let's begin." Su-Yun immediately bellowed. "Are you so anxious to be carried down?" Chu Shan extended his hand out and pulled out the 2 blades from the ground and snorted, "Don't say that I'm bullying you. I'll let you have 5 moves. In 5 moves, if you can even touch a hair of mine, it's your win. How about that?" Hearing that, Su-Yun frowned. "Really? How can I?" Chu Shan's words be false. Chu Shan used his blade to pat his chest. "All right." Su-Yun nodded his head. He held onto his swords tightly. He frowned and said indifferently, "Then are you ready? Bring it on." Chu Shan said decisively, his face brimming with confidence. But with the sound of something breaking through the air exploded. Before Chu Shan could react, he heard a wong-wong sound in his ears, followed by a cold light sweeping past. Sparks? No, it was even faster than sparks. He was completely stunned. Before he could even react, he saw a few strands of hair falling from his eyes. It was his own hair. "You've lost." A voice came out from behind. Chu Shan was shocked. He turned his head, only to see that Su-Yun had unknowingly appeared behind him. Su-Yun held onto his sword. The tip of the sword pointed at Chu Shan and said indifferently, "According to what we said earlier, admit defeat." Chu Shan looked at Su-Yun in shock, perspiration trickling down his face. He realized that he could not even catch a glimpse of Su-Yun's movements. Not only him, many of the spectators were shocked. What speed is that? So fast. I never thought that Group D would actually have someone capable. Capable? You call that a capable person? Just watch. Chu Shan has not even used his full strength. When Chu Shan gets serious, this Su-Yun will definitely be lying on the ground. Is Duo Blade snatching life your father? Why are you praising him like that? I think Chu Shan will fall here today. You. The spectators were shouting and quarreling endlessly, while at the side of the participants, They were all surprised. Even the 4 evaluators were focused. Oh, such a fast speed. This fellow called Su Yun seems to have some skills. Lu Gu opened his eyes wide, the corner of his mouth raised. He had an interested look as he spoke. This movement technique is not bad. Lu Gue Fong picked up a square wooden plate that was emitting light. She glanced at it a few times and said, "This Su Yun's fighting strength seems to only be slightly more than 3,000. He has a difference of 1,500 fighting strength with Chu Shan. Although it is only 1,500, but according to their current fighting strength, this 1,500 might be a difference of 2 or 3 stages. If Su Yun wants to win, it will not be easy." Zhang Guahao nodded his head in agreement. The entire place was buzzing with noise. Su Yun's move was truly shocking. Chu Shan regained his senses. Seeing the reactions of the spectators, he immediately clenched his teeth, feeling humiliated. "You're still not admitting defeat?" Su Yun frowned. "Don't tell me you want to go back on your words." "Pooey, what do you mean go back on my words? If you truly touched me openly, Chu Shan, will definitely not go back on my words. But you used underhanded methods. It does not count." Chu Shan snorted. Once he admitted defeat, it would be considered as giving up, and if he gave up, not only would he have to cut off his own arm, he would also have to cripple his own cultivation. How could he do that? "As expected, you still went back on your words." Su Yun shook his head, a cold look flashing past his eyes. "Less bullshit." Chu Shan's body bent down. He gathered his strength. He stared at Su Yun and roared, "I want to let you experience the power of my duo blade snatching life." With that said, he stomped his feet and leapt into the air. His 2 blades were raised up high and fiercely slashed toward Su Yun. Chapter 425. The approaching Chu Shan had a suffocating pressure, as though Mount Tai was pressing down on them, causing them to be unable to breathe. The 2 sharp and slender blades ignited with a burst of grayish-white flames. When they were close to Su Yun, the stage suddenly sunk down. The surrounding air was forced to disperse, as though a vacuum zone was formed. It was caused by the pressure from the blades. Such power! But just as Chu Shan's blades were about to attack, Su Yun moved. He suddenly raised the 2 swords in his hands. Staring at Chu Shan's chest, he fiercely thrusted forward. Seeing that, Chu Shan laughed out loud. "I'm mainly trained in true divine spirit Qi. The flaw on my chest that I purposely exposed has long been covered with true divine spirit Qi. Adding the Qilin treasured armor on my body, my defense is not something you can imagine. You want to pierce through me? Dream on, haha, now you've lost." With that said, the 2 blades slashed towards Su Yun's head. So, he had purposely exposed his chest, allowing the opponent to attack. Most people who saw Chu Shan's attack would choose to attack their unguarded chest, as it would be too late to dodge, and the only way to win was to attack. But the defense on his chest had been hardened to the extreme by Chu Shan. The so-called flaw was actually a trap to purposely attract the opponent to attack. But, just as Chu Shan thought that Su Yun was unable to break through the defense on his chest, the 2 gray swords suddenly released waves of bone-chilling sharp intent. They were like electric drills, piercing into Chu Shan's chest, quickly ripping apart the true divine spirit Qi on his chest, and then piercing through it. 2 blood flowers blossomed on Chu Shan's back. His entire body twitched. The blade that was slashing towards Su Yun suddenly lost its power, and when it smashed down again, it was already weak and powerless. Su Yun's hands waved to the left and right. The sword tip slashed horizontally, instantly slicing apart half of Chu Shan's chest, and the sharp sword tip sliced off both of his arms. Chu Shan fell to the ground. His mouth was wide open, and he groaned in pain. It was extremely miserable. Fresh blood splattered all over the ground. The 2 blades were stabbed into the stage. Victory was decided in an instant. 1, 2, 3. The entire place was silent for a full 3 seconds. Following that, deafening cheers erupted out. "Good. Well done." This is Chu Shan's killing technique. Although, when he unleashed the technique, his chest was exposed, but this flaw is not actually a flaw. His divine spirit Qi had already hardened the skin on his chest, and ordinary people are unable to pierce through it. This technique does not have any flaws, but Su Yun unexpectedly broke through it and averted the danger. This shows how extraordinary Su Yun is. To actually be able to break Chu Shan's divine chi attributed defense. Those two swords of his must be treasures. Maybe Chu Shan lost because of the treasures. Su Yun's two swords must be divine weapons. If not, how could he break Chu Shan's defense so easily? Although it ended very quickly, Su Yun still has some strength. Discussions broke out all around. Su Yun glanced at Chu Shan. He was still twitching on the ground. His eyes were white, as though he was going to faint at any time. He turned and walked down the stage. The host, Zhu Wen, was still in a daze. When Su Yun left the stage, he finally reacted and shouted, "The competition is over. The winner of this competition is participant Su Yun." Such a huge upset was unexpected, and countless people started to pay attention to the participant from Group B, Su Yun. But they were more concerned about the two swords that he was using. To be able to break Chu Shan's defense so easily, how could they be ordinary weapons? At the participant seats of Group A, Chu Shan was careless. Hanyu Xin said indifferently, "Oh." Zhongyi blinked his eyes. "Could it be that you think Chu Shan should not have lost? If he had used his full strength from the start, maybe the result would not have been like this." He treated his opponent as a Group D participant and not as an enemy. That is the reason why he lost so quickly. Hanyu Xin said. Zhongyi remained silent. Su Yun walked back to his seat and did not go to the resting area. Chu Shan's carelessness allowed him to win easily. But even if he became serious, Su Yun was not afraid. But for the sake of fighting with the experts behind him and obtaining the reward of 1,000,000 cultivation coins and increasing his fighting strength, he had to conserve his strength. If not, it would not be beneficial for the later battles. Young noble, young noble. Just then, the servant that Su Yun had asked to place the bets ran over while gasping for breath. She held onto a green cultivation coin card. She ran to Su Yun and excitedly handed it over to him. Young noble, this is your cultivation coin card. The betting odds are very high. 1 to 20, you have earned a total of 2,000,000 cultivation coins. The servant said excitedly. Even she did not expect that Su Yun would actually win against Chu Shan. And not only did he win, he won so easily. 2,000,000 cultivation coins? Su Yun smiled. This money is so easy to earn. That's right. There's also your capital. It is a total of 1,000,000 cultivation coins. Young noble, please check. The servant took out another cultivation coin card. It was the card that Su Yun had given her previously. Su Yun took it and checked the amount of cultivation coins inside, then asked, "What's your name?" Reporting to young noble, "This servant is called Xiao Xiao." The servant replied respectfully, "Yes, Xiao Xiao, you did well. I will reward you with this 100,000 cultivation coins." Su Yun threw the cultivation coin card over, then turned and returned to his seat. Xiao Xiao was startled. She looked at the cultivation coin card in her hands in a daze, feeling as though she was in the clouds. 100,000. It was enough for her to work here for a few years. The sudden surprise almost caused her to scream out. She anxiously covered her mouth and looked left and right, then carefully kept the cultivation coin card. Su Yun continued to sit at his seat and watch the competition, but at that moment, many of the participants were looking at him. In less than an incense stick worth of time, he had defeated Lifestealer Dual Blades. This news was shocking enough, and he was even a participant from Group D. Everyone looked at Su Yun and whispered to each other. No one knew what they were talking about. Su Yun did not care. As though there was no one around him, his gaze turned to the stage. After the battle with Chu Shan ended, Zhu Wen immediately entered the next round. It was a fight between two participants from Group C. It was still boring, and some of the spectators started to yawn. However, Su Yun watched with great interest. Maybe the two of them were not strong, but the battle between them had a pattern that was hard for ordinary people to detect. Every person's fighting style was obtained from countless of battles. If they could absorb the advantages, they would be able to increase their own strength by a small margin. The layman would watch the show, while the expert would observe the technique. Those participants who only cared about who was strong or weak had unknowingly eliminated themselves. Very quickly, the battle ended, and the light aura shone again. Group A, Dragon Spear Zhongyi. Everyone looked over, and when the card in Zhongye's hand lit up, he had become the focal point. Who's next? Everyone started to look at the participant area, but the other light aura had yet to explode. Kacha just then. The 4 pavilions floating in the air suddenly started to move, and one of the pavilions exploded with a burst of white light aura. Everyone was startled. Zhongyi anxiously raised his head to look, and when he saw the light aura exploding out from the pavilion, his face congealed. Pavilion? That must be an official participant. Is that an official participant? Not good. Is it a participant sent by the organization? Seems like Zhongyi is going to fight. I wonder what the cultivation of the participant is like. From what I see, to be chosen by the organization, his strength is not simple. Zhongyi is truly unlucky. Just as the light aura exploded out, Su Yun's ears started to whisper. He turned his head and saw a few spirit cultivators discussing something. Participants sent by the organization? Could it be that other than Group A, B, C, and D, there are other participants? When the light aura dissipated, one of the 4 floating pavilions' doors opened, and a man dressed in a white robe with red flowers flew down from the sky. The man had long hair that reached his shoulders, and he was born with delicate features. His complexion was fair and clear, and he was extraordinarily handsome. He held an ink-stained paper fan in his hand as he gracefully stood on the arena. With a wave of his hand, the paper fan opened and lightly swayed as he stared at Zhongyi, who was walking towards him. Zhongyi stepped forward and quickly flew up, his gaze becoming serious as he stared at the man. Zhu wiped the perspiration off his forehead. He looked left and right, then shouted, "For this round, participant Zhongyi will fight against participant Huoquan Kai. Will the 2 participants please prepare yourselves?" Huoquan Kai. I've never heard of him. Quickly check his strength when he registered. All right, let me see what. 6,000? Shocked voices came out from the spectator stands. 6,000? That is a full 500 fighting strength higher than Zhongyi. Could he have already surpassed the 3rd stage of the Spirit Master realm? How can Zhongyi be his opponent? The exclamations continued. Don't look at the difference of a mere 500 battle strength. Towards the end, every increase in battle strength would require a large amount of cultivation to support it. After reaching the 5th stage of the Spirit Master realm, perhaps every 100 battle strength on the qualification certificate could decide the outcome of a battle. At the later stages, even a small difference in battle strength will be difficult to make up for with treasures and pills. Seems like Zhongyi is going to have a tough battle. I never thought that other than the geniuses from Group A, the organization would also send experts to participate. Although it would cause people to gossip, but the rules were set by others, and I have no right to question them. Following the sound of the bell, Zhongyi and Huoquan Kai immediately stood up. Although the other party was unknown, but to be sent to fight by the organization, how could he be an ordinary person? Zhongyi did not dare to be careless. Using all of his strength, he wielded a purple spear and thrust it forward. His movements were bold and unrestrained. The spear in his hand was like a dancing purple gigantic dragon. Its might was extraordinary. Every time it danced, the surrounding air would tremble. Its destructive power was extremely terrifying. But Huoquan Kai held onto his paper fan and continued to dodge left and right. His body was extremely agile. Facing Zhongye's powerful attacks, he was able to dodge every single time. But what made people perspire was that his dodging was extremely dangerous. Every single time, he would brush against Zhongye's spear body to dodge. If it was only once or twice, it would be fine, but for it to happen every single time, it made people suspect if Huoquan Kai was doing it on purpose. The difference of 500 was not a small difference to people of their cultivation, but it should not be to the extent where Zhongyi could not even touch Huoquan Kai, right? Su Yun frowned. Suddenly, he turned his gaze and realized that the shoes on Huoquan Kai's feet were releasing a faint light whenever he moved. Treasure? Chapter 426. Su Yun stared at Huoquan Kai's shoes seriously. Every time he was about to be pierced by the Zhongyi, his shoes would light up with a bright light aura, and his body would move, dodging the attacks. Seems like Huoquan Kai's strange movement technique has something to do with this pair of boots. No wonder Zhong Yi could not even touch Hua Quan Kai. Su Yin thought. Hua Quan Kai's face revealed a strange smile. He looked at the panting Zhong Yi and said, "Brother Zhong Yi, it's about time. It should be my turn now, right?" "Huh?" Zhong Yi suddenly looked up. Hua Quan Kai suddenly kept his fan, and a burst of gold qi leaked out from the fan, striking toward Zhong Yi. Zhong Yi hurriedly lifted his spear to sweep away the golden qi, but the golden qi attached to the spearhead and dyed the spearhead a golden red color. Zhong Yi suddenly felt the weight of the spear in his hand increase, as if it weighed 1,000 pounds, incomparably heavy. "This is gold qi? A magic treasure?" Zhong Yi turned pale with fright. A bit of gold energy floated over and touched a bit of his shoulder. In an instant, with a crack, the part of his shoulder that was stained with gold energy fell off. His clothes and flesh fell to the ground like a heavy shot put. Seeing this, everyone on the player benches sucked in a cold breath. If all of this landed on a person's body, wouldn't that person be squashed into a meat patty? Zhong Ye's back was drenched in cold sweat. He turned and retreated to the side of the stage. Looking at Hua Quan Kai, who was fanning himself, he asked angrily, "What treasure is that?" 10,000 gold strength. Ordinary people have never heard of it." Hua Quan Kai laughed indifferently. Zhong Yi clenched his fists tightly and glanced at his surroundings. At this moment, in this arena, with so many people watching him, he absolutely could not lose. He clenched his teeth and growled, "Do you think there's a magic treasure to save you? Take this." He roared, and suddenly took out a red rope and wrapped it around the spear in his hand, then roared and rushed towards Hua Quan Kai. Clang, 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 clang. The gold qi floating in the air quickly gathered together to form a golden wall, blocking the incoming spear. Zhong Yi didn't give up. He raised his palm, and a powerful aura condensed in his palm before he slapped it towards the golden wall of energy. Dong! The qi wall shattered. The attribute of Zhong Ye's profound qi was not only the wild blade qi, but also the true divine spirit qi. Moreover, the true divine spirit qi was incomparably thick, and it was even stronger than the wild blade qi that he mainly cultivated. After breaking the qi wall, the purple spear took the chance to attack, and when it neared Hua Quan Kai, it suddenly softened, like a living purple dragon coiling around Hua Quan Kai. What? The incomparably hard dragon spear is actually like a rope. A contestant from Group A stood up and exclaimed in surprise. Hua Quan Kai lowered his head to look, and saw that the red string on the spear was glowing, and immediately understood the reason. He snorted and started to exert strength in his arms, intending to force the dragon's spear away. But how could Zhong Yi given the chance? With a hoo sound, Zhong Yi soared into the air, his hands clenched into fists, and smashed towards Hua Quan Kai's head. There weren't any fancy, profound skills or fancy movements, only a bone-chilling killing intent, an invincible, profound energy. Is the winner about to be decided? Quite a number of people stood up and focused their attention on the stage. But just then, Hua Quan Kai suddenly released the hand that was holding onto the fan, and the fan actually flew up by itself, revolving continuously like a fast-spinning golden wheel. It struck towards Zhong Yi. Zhong Ye's heart jumped, seeing that the situation was not right. He anxiously retracted his fists and retreated. Hua Quan Kai seized the opportunity. He flipped his body, and with his feet on the ground, he gathered all of his profound qi, but not in his arms, but in his entire body, and along with the purple spear, he struck towards Zhong Yi. Bang! Zhong Yi could not react in time. His chest was struck by Hua Quan Kai's shoulder, and he flew out, landing at the side of the stage. He coughed violently a few times and anxiously climbed up. The attack was not to injure Zhong Yi, but to disrupt the profound qi in his body. Once the profound qi was disrupted, the purple spear that was binding Hua Quan Kai loosened. Hua Quan Kai's arms were able to move, and he immediately leaped forward. Waving his hand, he received the fan and swung it towards Zhong Yi. Whoosh, 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 sharp wind blades formed from the fan and sliced towards Zhong Yi. Zhong Yi dodged left and right. He was already disrupted by Hua Quan Kai. adding that the dragon spear was out of his hands. Without a weapon, his fighting strength was greatly reduced. Facing the incoming wind blades, he was actually panicking. Seeing that, Su Yun was extremely disappointed. Dragon Spear Zhong Yi, if he is only at this standard, then he truly lives up to his name. Pucci Zhong Yi's shoulders were injured by the chi blades. Huoquan Kai took the chance to rush forward and slashed his fan towards Huoquan Kai's head. If the attack hit, Huoquan Kai would definitely die on the spot. According to the rules of the competition, once there was a killing technique that could endanger one's life, the judges had to step out to stop it and protect the cultivator, but none of the 4 judges below the stage made a move and sat in their seats to watch the battle. Zhong Ye's face was devoid of blood. He anxiously raised his arms and activated his divine spirit chi to block. Pucci, the divine spirit chi, was sliced apart by the fan, and even Zhong Ye's wrists were sliced apart. Zhong Yi was instantly crippled. Huoquan Kai flipped his body and kicked Zhong Ye's face, causing Zhong Yi to flip a few rounds in the air. He spat out blood and rolled on the ground. He wanted to stand up again, but he had no strength left. The victor was decided. Zhong Yi fell to the ground. He wanted to stand up, but was unable to do so. Huoquan Kai walked over to him and gently waved his fan. Seeing that, the host Zhu Wen's fat body trembled. He regained his senses and shouted, "Zhong Yi has lost his ability to fight. Participant Huoquan Kai is the winner." The entire place was quiet for a few seconds. Following that, waves of cheers sounded out. Dragon Spear Zhong Yi is only SOSO. Huoquan Kai laughed indifferently. He then turned and soared into the sky, landing in front of the pavilion. He bowed respectfully towards the door of the pavilion and saw that there was a faint figure behind the door. The figure nodded his head, and Huoquan Kai then walked in. Zhong Ye's eyes were wide open. He stared at the man who had disappeared in front of the pavilion, his eyes filled with anger. He was helped down from the stage and walked towards the resting room. Along the way, all the spirit cultivator S who used to flatter him were silent. Some of them turned their gazes away, intentionally not looking at him, while others lowered their heads and did not say a word. If he was evenly matched with Huoquan Kai, it would be a different story, but facing Huoquan Kai, Zhong Yi did not even have the strength to retaliate. In less than an incense stick worth of time, both of his hands were chopped off, and he obtained victory in an overwhelming manner. Such a crushing defeat caused many people to be disappointed in Zhong Yi. Zhong Yi naturally sensed the changes in the people around him. He clenched his teeth, supporting his hazy willpower. He closed his eyes. After experiencing Zhong Yi's defeat, the competition seemed to have entered a new stage. But for the following rounds, there were no more Group A participants, and the majority of the participants were from Group C and D. Occasionally, there would be Group B participants, but not many. Group C and D had a large number of participants, so the chances of them being selected were naturally not small. Not long later, Su Yun went up again. For the sake of not attracting the attention of others, Su Yun intentionally conserved his speed and divine spirit chi, and after exchanging over 10 rounds with his opponent, he finally pierced through his opponent's abdomen, causing him to lose his fighting ability and win the competition. After 2 rounds of fighting, many people started to pay attention to Su Yun, and based on his performance in the 2 rounds, the people at the betting booth had already placed him in the ranks of Group B. Slowly, the number of members in Group C and D decreased, and the number of people in the resting area increased, while the atmosphere of the competition became more and more intense. As the competition progressed, the people from Group A and B gradually went up, and the competition had already evolved from a traditional competition between participants to a competition between geniuses. "Brother Su." Just then a weak voice came out. Su Yun turned to look and saw a pale-faced Lu Zhan Yuan holding onto the railing and walking over. "Zhan Yuan." Su Yun was startled. "You're fine? The organizers are truly rich. They use good medicine to treat us. My body is healed, but I'm still very weak. I should be able to recover after a few months of recuperation." Lu Zhan Yuan laughed and walked to Su Yun's side and sat down. Both of his arms were wrapped up in bandages. The spirit doctors had used medicine to regenerate his broken arms, but he could not move them freely, and would need at least a week before he could use anything. It had to be said, the recovery of a Spirit Star Realm cultivator was truly heaven-defying. If it was a mortal, they would probably be bettered in for the rest of their lives. His face was perspiring, and it could be seen that his body was still in pain. "Why aren't you resting in the resting area?" Suyun asked. "That place is filled with the stench of blood. There are too many people, and I feel uncomfortable, so I came out. Furthermore, I wanted to see Brother Su's competition. Seeing that you're still sitting here, you must have won the previous few rounds very easily, right?" Lu Zhanyuan laughed. Although Su Yun's fighting strength of 3,000 could not win against Group A and B, but Group C and D was something he could handle. "My previous few rounds were definitely against Group C and D people," Lu Zhanyuan thought. He looked around and realized that there were only 50-plus people left in Group C and D. Including Group A and B, there were only 100-plus participants. Without question, all of them were elites, existences that were chosen from close to 1,000 participants. Whoosh! Light auras erupted. One came from Group B, while the other came from Group D. Everyone first looked at Group B. The person whose card was glowing was a man with white hair and a red sword on his back. The people in Group C and D were not unfamiliar with this man, as before the competition started, he was the one who had humiliated the people in Group C and D without any fear. The man had fought a few rounds before, and all of his opponents had their chests sliced open by him, causing their internal organs to almost spill out. All of them ended up in a miserable state. It could be seen that he was a vicious and merciless person, but because of his viciousness, he had made a name for himself in the competition. Ruthless by Mu Jian. Good. The participant for the competition are Group B's by Mu Jian and Group D's participant Su Yun. Now, let's invite the two participants up on stage. Zhu Wen continued to shout tirelessly. Bai Mu Jian stood up and glanced at Su Yun, his mouth curling upwards. "Oh, the person who defeated Chu Shan. I never thought that it would be against you. Not bad, not bad. Unlike those trash, at least you have some ability. Come up and play with me." With that said, Bai Mu Jian stepped forward and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already on the stage. Fast? No. Su Yun could not feel any traces of the wind. It seems to be some sort of mystical technique that allows a person to instantly appear 100 m away. Su Yun stared at Bai Mu Jian. He raised his hand and hooked his finger at Su Yun, looking like he was provoking him. Roar! Many of the spectators stood up and shouted excitedly. Bai Mu Jian's provocation was like a spark, igniting the fire in their hearts. Bai Mu Jian, kill him! Kill him! Use your most barbaric method. Don't hold back, the spectators shouted. After experiencing countless of cruel and bloody battles, a few conservative people had completely let go. They enjoyed the slaughter, enjoyed the blood, and were completely intoxicated by it. Su Yun frowned. He took a light breath and stood up. "Xiao Xiao, young noble, do you have any instructions?" Xiao Xiao, who was not far away, immediately ran over. Ever since Su Yun had given her 100,000 cultivation coins, she had intentionally stood close to Su Yun. "Go and place another bet, 2 million, on me winning." Su Yun handed the cultivation coin card over to Xiao Xiao and said indifferently, "Why yes, young noble." Xiao Xiao's voice was trembling. When had she ever seen such a huge amount? After calming herself down, she immediately took the cultivation coin card and ran away. Lu Zhanyuan, who was by the side, was completely shocked. 2 million cultivation coins? And he even bet on me winning? Su Yun was either crazy or he had absolute confidence in himself. He bit his lower lip and said weakly, "Brother Su, be careful." Su Yun turned his head and nodded his head, then walked towards the stage. Bai Mu Jian, can Brother Su truly win against an expert from Group B? Lu Zhanyuan looked at Su Yun's back and muttered. Chapter 4:27. Plop. Su Yun flicked up the stage and steadily landed in front of Bai Mu Jian. Dressed in black and wearing a black cape, Su Yun's face could not be seen clearly. Compared to Bai Mu Jian, who had white hair and red pupils, his face was clean. The two of them used swords. The only difference was that Bai Mu Jian used the red sword on his back, while Su Yun's sword was different every time. He reached for the sword case behind him again and took out an aqua blue long sword. holding it tightly in his hand. Bai Mu Jian squinted his eyes and laughed. Your sword sheath is truly mystical. There must be many swords hidden inside, but as a swordsman, you must only recognize one sword and only believe in one sword. You use so many swords. Aren't you afraid of not being able to use them? Su Yin shook his head. No. Why? Because I'm their master. It doesn't matter if it's smooth or not. It only matters if they're obedient or not. Su Yin said calmly. Every sword in the sword sheath that could be used was a sword that he had conquered. The swords were all under his control. Become the owner of the sword? His tone was quite arrogant. Su Yin, don't think that I'm a simple-minded idiot like Chu Shan, and even more so, don't treat me as the trash of your group C and D. If I want to kill you, it will be extremely easy. If I want to defeat you, it will be as easy as flipping my hand. Bai Mu Jian chuckled. Su Yin did not say anything. I advise you to use your consummate technique later. In case you lose in an instant, it will be too unsightly. Bai Mu Jian said. Su Yun remained silent. Seeing that Su Yun was so calm, a trace of anger flashed past Bai Mu Jian's eyes. At this time, Zhu Wen was already shouting. The match is about to begin. Please get ready. Bai Mu Jian retrieved the red sword from his back, but did not unsheath it. Su Yun held onto the aqua blue sword, the sword tip pointing to the ground, standing perfectly straight. The wind from afar caused his long hair and black robe to sway, and his robe to flutter. Traces of solemn killing intent reverberated in the surroundings. Dang! At this moment, a melodious bell rang. The match began. The surrounding audience held their breaths. Lu Zhanyuan, who was seated in Group D, anxiously looked over. But Bai Mu Jian did not move. He looked at Su Yun with a smile. But what was even more surprising was that Su Yun did not move. The two of them stood in the arena, looking at each other. The scene was eerily quiet. Su Yun's expression was focused. His pale white face did not have much expression, while Bai Mu Jian maintained his smile, a ridiculing smile. It was as if he did not take Su Yun seriously at all. Finally, Bai Mu Jian spoke. Sometimes, I really admire people like you who overestimate yourselves and dare to challenge people who are stronger than you. This requires a lot of courage. If it were me, I would definitely avoid the battle. However, admiration is admiration, but it doesn't mean that I like you. Now, let me crush that bit of courage in your heart and let you understand what fear is and what it means not to provoke you, child. Bai Mu Jian raised the blood-red sword in his hand. With the sword sheath facing Su Yun, he moved and transformed into a dozen afterimages that struck forward. Child? Su Yun frowned. Seeing Bai Mu Jian rushing over, he did not anxiously defend. Although the host, Zhu Wen, claimed that his fighting strength was 3,000, but in truth he had already entered the 5,000 mark, and his strength belonged to the ranks of Group A participants. In a one-on-one fight, Bai Mu Jian was definitely not his opponent. It was easy to win the competition, but relying on his own mystical techniques and treasures to win had lost its meaning. He needed to raise his own techniques. If he could see the flaws in the opponent's techniques and use them to defeat the opponent, then by winning the competition, he would be able to raise his own fighting strength and cultivation, and the competition would not be a waste of his efforts. Bai Mu Jian's aura was strong. It was unknown if he had activated a mystical technique or a treasure, but all of the afterimages were filled with killing intent, and all of the afterimages were filled with destructive power. All living things were real and fake, although there were many afterimages, but one of them was the real body. If he wanted to see the flaws, he had to find the real body. Su Yun's eyes became serious. He stared straight at the incoming afterimages. Suddenly, he realized a strange phenomenon. The majority of the afterimages were overlapping. One afterimage was pressing down on the other, either by their sleeves or their arms. However, only the shadow on the far right was completely independent. It must be the real body. Su Yun held onto the blue sword tightly and retreated 10 steps. Pulling apart the distance between him and the opponent, he continued to observe. He did not dare stare at the real body, in case Bai Mu Jian knew that he had seen through his techniques and changed to another technique. More than 10 afterimages approached, all of them thrusting their blood-red sword sheaths towards Su Yun. All around him, it was like a wall filled with steel nails, causing him to be unable to hide. Seeing that, Su Yun's gaze turned, like a venomous snake staring at the real body. He raised his hand to attack, and the blue sword in his hand thrusted forward like lightning. The sword blade stuck close to the incoming sword sheath and directly thrusted forward. Without any hesitation, the sword tip was aimed straight for the heart. Huh? Bai Mu Jian was startled. Su Yun did not defend. He allowed the 10 sword sheaths to attack him, and continued to attack. From an outsider's point of view, it was an exchange of techniques, but in truth it was not. Although Bai Mu Jian and the afterimages had unleashed more than 10 attacks, but the sword sheath was still a sword sheath, without any profound spirit chi. It was unable to cut through a person's body. But Su Yun was different. Although he had unleashed one sword, it was aimed at Bai Mu Jian's heart. It was a vital point. If they exchanged, Bai Mu Jian would definitely be at a disadvantage. Whoosh! The afterimages suddenly disappeared. Bai Mu Jian had retracted his technique. He placed his sword horizontally in front of his chest, blocking the blue sword that was thrusting towards him. Su Yun seized the opportunity and kicked Bai Mu Jian's abdomen. Bang! Bai Mu Jian's abdomen was struck, and he fell from the sky. He anxiously stabilized his body, using one hand to push off the ground. He flipped and landed on the ground, preventing himself from falling flat on his face. Although he was not in a sorry state, but there was a clear footprint on his abdomen that was extremely eye-catching. Oh! Bai Mu Jian lowered his head to look at the footprint on his abdomen, and his smile gradually disappeared. Many of the spectators sighed in disappointment. All of them were like needles that pierced into Bai Mu Jian's eardrums. You should use your sword. Since you're a martial artist, you have to give it your all. Su Yun raised the sword in his hand and said indifferently, "Tis." Bai Mu Jian's eyes gradually became cold. Seems like you are interesting. Not bad. Not bad. Since the start of the competition, you are the first person to meet me. Seems like I have to treat you seriously. With that said, Bai Mu Jian raised the blood-red sword in his hand. Holding onto the sword sheath, he unsheathed the sword with both hands. Buzz, 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 a series of clear sword hums came out. Whoosh! Many of Bai Mu Jian's fans all stood up from their seats and stared at Bai Mu Jian with passionate gazes. Bai Mu Jian was extremely arrogant. Everyone had seen it for themselves in the previous competition. All of his opponents were just toys in his eyes. He had never been serious, and when he was tired of playing, his opponents would be carried off the stage. And in the previous competition, he had never unsheathed the sword that he was so proud of, and from start to finish, he had only used the sword sheath to attack. But now Bai Mu Jian had unsheathed his sword. No one knew how sharp his sword was, or how fast it was. But the moment the sword was unsheathed, the sharpness of the blood-red sword had already extended out. Like a light aura, it pierced the skin of the spectators. You will pay the price for that kick of yours. Bai Mu Jian laughed, his smile filled with killing intent. With that said, he raised his sword horizontally, spirit chi surged, and like a bolt of lightning, it pierced towards Su Yun. Seeing that, Su Yun flipped the blue sword with one hand. He activated his pure divine spirit chi and stored on the sword blade, causing it to move, using the chi to slow down Bai Mu Jian's sharpness. The red and blue swords interweaved together. The two of them had sword images in the middle, clanging sounds coming out non-stop. Slow. His sword technique was extremely slow, although it was at least 100 times faster than an ordinary swordsman, but it was not enough. Su Yun thought. In terms of speed, Bai Mu Jian was not Su Yun's opponent, but he did not want to defeat Bai Mu Jian so quickly. Bai Mu Jian's reputation was much greater than Chu Shan, and he was a well-known figure in Group B. If Su Yun were to defeat him so easily, he would definitely be targeted by others, and it would not be beneficial for his future battles. I'll take this chance to see what's so special about Bai Mu Jian's sword technique, he thought, his eyes continuously looking at the trajectory of Bai Mu Jian's wantonly brandishing red sword. Bai Mu Jian's sword swayed extremely quickly, with the intent to use the sharpness of the sword to tear apart Su Yun's pure divine spirit chi. Su Yun stared at the tip of the sword. His right hand suddenly stopped swaying and thrust it forward. His speed was neither fast nor slow, but he managed to dodge the sword's swaying attack and directly struck the sword tip. Bang! The two swords clashed, causing two bursts of spirit chi to erupt, but Su Yun's sudden attack, caused by Mu Jian to be unable to react in time, an explosion occurred, causing by Mu Jian to retreat a few steps. His arm was numb, and before he could regain his senses, his chest was kicked, causing him to retreat a few steps. After a while, he finally stabilized his body. He anxiously lowered his head to look, only to see that there was a clear footprint on his chest. What? Bai Mu Jian was enraged. He felt that Su Yun was deliberately trying to humiliate him. What's going on? Is this Bai Mu Jian, all right? Why haven't you gotten rid of Su Yun yet? Bai Mu Jian, what are you doing? Why is he still standing? I bet on you to win. If you can't win, then go and die. A few of the excited spectators scolded. Bai Mu Jian knew that if he did not kill Su Yun, his reputation would be in danger. So he completely kept his playful attitude and became serious. But just at that moment, Su Yun rushed over. Come at me. Bai Mu Jian suddenly gripped his blood-red sword tightly and pierced it into the ground. Seeing that, a light aura flashed past Su Yun's eyes. Bai Mu Jian roared out. 5 Dragon Sword Formation. In an instant, the blood-red sword's blade overflowed with a large amount of strange liquid. This liquid was like fresh blood. It spread out in lightning speed, transforming into a blood-red sword array with a diameter of 3 meters. When the sword array was formed, Su Yun had already charged into it. The vigorous and astonishing sword concept surged like waves, recklessly surging out. Chapter 428. When he entered the sword array immediately became restless, like boiling water. It released a large amount of bubbles, but these bubbles did not explode. Instead, they became longer and longer, continuously protruding outwards, finally converging into a long blood vessel, binding Su Yun's legs, suppressing him. A cold light flashed past by Mu Jian's eyes. He turned his footwork. His figure became extremely confident as he rushed forward. When he got close to the formation, he raised both of his hands, causing the blood sword that was stabbed into the ground to immediately soar into the sky, releasing a large amount of sword chi in the air, which transformed into a blood dragon with 5 heads that pounced toward Su Yun. Look! Heavens! What kind of move is that? An uproar broke out outside the arena. Such a magnificent and majestic move stunned countless people. This is a deadly move. If it hit, Su Yun would definitely die. Everyone, are we going to start? Lu Guifeng asked anxiously. Attack? No way, I don't even have the confidence to take this move, unless the 4 of us attack together. But I'm afraid it won't be easy for us either. In short, I'm not going, Lu Gu said with a pale face. Xiao Ziru and Zhang Hua did not open their mouths, but their expressions were gloomy as they stared at the blood dragon that was roaring towards Su Yun. From their actions, they did not seem to have any intentions of making a move. It seemed like the judges did not care anymore. Su Yun could only rely on himself for this move. Bai Mu Jian raised both of his hands up high, controlling the blood dragon to smash downwards. He did not have any intentions of stopping. It seemed like he wanted to use one move to determine the victor. Countless people stared at this scene, waiting for the result. But at this moment, Su Yun moved. He let go of the sword in his hand, and it actually flew out on its own. Like a rainbow, it pierced through the blood sword in the blood dragon's body. Clang! A crisp sound rang out, and the blood sword was struck. The edge of the sword changed, and the 5-headed blood dragon crashed towards the edge of the arena. Dong, 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 dong. Half of the arena was smashed into powder, and the entire venue shook. The remnant might of the blood dragon was still rippling in the air. This is impossible. Bai Mu Jian's eyes were wide open. Taking advantage of the distraction, Su Yun suddenly exerted his strength and broke free from the blood array. Leaping into the air, He grabbed the blue sword that bounced back and slashed. Pucci! Bai Mu Jian's shoulder was instantly sliced open, the sword tip slicing through his ribs, only stopping above his heart. Fresh blood spurted out. Bai Mu Jian's right arm seemed to be hanging down. It was almost chopped off. His entire body twitched a few times. The spirit force in his body was like a collapsing snowy mountain. He was completely defeated. Su Yun suddenly retracted his subsword, causing Bai Mu Jian to retreat a few steps. His face pale white as he looked at Su Yun in shock, and finally fell to the ground. The gurgling blood then flowed into the arena. Counterattack. This was the most typical counterattack. Just as everyone thought that Bai Mu Jian would definitely win, Su Yun used the element of surprise to dissolve his opponent's killing technique. The whole place was silent. Not long after, a tsunami-like roar resounded. All right, we won. Su Yun actually won. Awesome. The audience shouted hysterically, continuously calling out Su Yun's name, as if they wanted to carve this name into their hearts. But even more voices cursing at Bai Mu Jian came out. Who would have thought that Bai Mu Jian would lose so quickly? That so-called five-dragon sword formation was only good for show. I never thought that he would actually win. Evaluator Lu Gu's eyes were filled with shock. He was no longer as lazy as he was before. It is not surprising that he won. Just then, Xiao Ziru, who was by the side, spoke out. Lu Gu turned to look at her, only to hear her speak again. Su Yun has always been calm and serious. On the other hand, Bai Mu Jian has always been arrogant and frivolous because his cultivation is higher than Su Yun's and never fought seriously. Bai Mu Jian had always thought that he would be able to enter the finals, so he always held back against his opponents, especially the Group C and D participants. He did not even pull out his sword. In terms of attitude, Su Yun has already won half the battle. Furthermore, Bai Mu Jian was kicked twice by Su Yun. He was enraged, his state of mind was in a mess, his techniques were unstable, his fighting intent was unstable, and he lost to Su Yun by 30%. With this 80%, it is enough to make up for the difference in cultivation between the two of them. It is not surprising that he lost. Hearing that, Lu Gu nodded his head in agreement and looked at Su Yun with concentration. He should be considered a dark horse in Group D. In the future, maybe he will become a powerful figure. Lu Gue Fong said. In truth, it is not just that. Xiao Ziru lowered her head and thought. Su Yun's techniques are not flashy. It could be said that he did not use many mystical techniques. But how did he so easily counter Bai Mu Jian's techniques? Is it a coincidence? Or could it be that he had seen through Bai Mu Jian's sword techniques from the start? Everyone started to think. This kind of person is suitable to train in the sword. Zhang Guahao said softly. A few workers ran up the stage and carried Bai Mu Jian, who could not stand up, and went straight to the resting area. Su Yun then continued to walk back to his seat. Upon seeing Su Yun's return, the participants from Group D, who came out from the resting area, all cheered out loudly. Su Yun, well done. That's great, Su Yun. Bai Mu Jian, that arrogant brat, deserves to be taught a lesson. Su Yun, you truly are our idol. The Group D participants all shouted out excitedly. Previously, Bai Mu Jian had humiliated the Group D participants in front of everyone, causing many of them to be angry but not dare to say anything. But now that Su Yun, who was a Group D participant, had defeated Bai Mu Jian so beautifully, it truly vented the anger in everyone's hearts. When Su Yun returned to his seat, many participants immediately swarmed over and asked about Su Yun's identity, where he came from, what sect he belonged to. The entire place was extremely chaotic. Su Yun laughed indifferently, but did not answer any of the questions. Brother Su, I never expected you to be so powerful. You truly exceeded my expectations. Lu Zhanyuan regained his senses after a long while. He anxiously grabbed onto Su Yun's hands and said anxiously, Brother Su, you are so powerful. You must definitely give me a few pointers. You don't even use a sword. Giving pointers on a few fighting techniques is the same. You should first recuperate before we talk. Su Yun pressed down on Lu Zhanyuan's hands, causing Lu Zhanyuan to immediately cry out in pain, like a pig being slaughtered. Seeing that, the surrounding people immediately laughed out loud. Just then, Xiao Xiu quickly ran over, squeezing through the crowd. She gasped for breath as she walked to Su Yun's side. She said softly, "Young noble, you have once again pulled an upset, adding on the lottery money, cold bets, and the capital. You have a total of 20 million cultivation coins. This is your cultivation coin card. Please take good care of it." 20 million? Su Yun was slightly dazed and only regained his senses after a long while. That is truly a lot. He took a deep breath and casually gave 100,000 cultivation coins to Xiao Xiu and kept the rest in his pocket. After the competition ends, I will find a place to absorb them. With close to 20 million cultivation coins, it is enough for my fighting strength to reach 7,000. Thank you, young noble. Thank you, young noble. After obtaining the cultivation coins, Xiao Xiu was extremely excited. She had obtained 200,000 cultivation coins. It was enough for her to step into the ranks of spirit cultivators. Not long later, all the participants dispersed, and Zhu Wen started to shout out for the next round. After the battle with Bai Mu Jian, Su Yun clearly felt that there were many unkind gazes looking at him. They were from Group A and B. Su Yun frowned. He secretly looked towards Group A and B. Just then, he saw a few people standing up from Group B. The leader was a lady dressed in yellow robe with a thin blade. Her expression was unkind as she angrily walked over, with 4 men and women following behind her. They were all experts from Group B. "Are those people from the Quickblade sect?" Lu Zhanyuan asked Su Yun softly. Su Yun did not say a word, but he could tell that they were looking for him. They walked over quickly, causing a few people who were seated to look at them, and started to discuss amongst themselves. The Quickblade sect lady with the thin blade walked in front of Su Yun, and a few spirit cultivators behind her surrounded him, all of them looking down at Su Yun, who was sitting on the seat. The lady had a beautiful appearance. She wore very little. Her white thighs were directly exposed to the air, giving off a scorching feeling. She hugged her breasts with both hands and snorted. "You must be Su Yun." Su Yun looked at everyone and asked, "Do the few of you need anything? Stinking brat. Why aren't you bowing when you see Miss Dao Huang? You're actually still sitting." One of the spirit cultivator grabbed onto Su Yun's collar and bellowed. But in the next second, Su Yun suddenly raised his leg and fiercely kicked towards his abdomen. Activating the monarch occult force, the ferocious, true divine spirit chi flowed through his leg and into his body, frantically shaking all of his internal organs. The man's face changed. He groaned and fell to the ground while clutching his abdomen. "Xiaoma!" Someone shouted. Seeing that, the others were enraged. 2 of them rushed forward and were about to make a move. "Stop! This is the competition grounds. There are experts from the trading organizations all around. If you guys cause trouble here, you will only be punished by the trading organizations." The lady from the Quickblade sect, who was called Dao Huang, bellowed. Hearing that, the 2 of them stopped and snorted at Su Yun, their faces filled with rage as they stared at him. Dao Huang sneered and said, "You dare to touch my people. Su Yun, you truly have guts. If I do not teach you a lesson today, how can I, Dao Huang, stay in New Deer City in the future? How can I stay in the Quickblade sect?" "Did I provoke you guys?" Su Yun said indifferently. "You injured Bai Mu Jian. That means you injured our Miss Dao Huang." Someone shouted, "Bai Mu Jian?" Su Yun was startled for a moment. He turned and looked at Dao Huang's eyes, then laughed. "So Bai Mu Jian is your lover? No wonder you're so angry with me. You can defeat him, but you can't let him lose so badly, and even more so, you can't injure him. But you didn't do that. You guys didn't tell me before. It's not too late to say it now, isn't it?" Dao Huang said coldly. "This is a competition. What I did is already considered light. In the previous few rounds, weren't his opponents also crippled by him? That's different. Those who were crippled are all trash. Trash do not need to be pitted." Dao Huang snorted. Lu Zhanyuan clenched his fists tightly. He was extremely furious. It was not only him. The Group D members nearby were all filled with rage. Bai Mujian's opponents were all from Group D. Weren't those words insulting the people from Group D as trash? Su Yun shook his head lightly and said indifferently, "That Bai Mu Jian does not need to be pitted either." Dao Huang frowned. "Why?" "Because in my eyes, he is also trash," Su Yun said unhurriedly. You. Dao Huang clenched her fists tightly, as though she was going to smash Su Yun's face at any moment. You stinking brat. You truly don't know what's good for you. Do you think you'll be fine in the competition? The competition will end, and once it ends, you will definitely regret your words. Brat, I can't take it anymore. Let's drag him out and teach him a lesson. The people by the side roared at Dao Huang. No need. If we do that, he will say that we are bullying him with numbers. Dao Huang clenched her teeth and said, Oh, then how do you plan to resolve this? Su Yun asked. Compensate 1 million cultivation coins, then go to the resting area and kowtow to buy Mu Jian as an apology. If not, we can only meet on the competition stage. Dao Huang said, You're thinking too much. Su Yun sat back on his chair and turned his gaze back to the competition, as though he did not plan to care about them anymore. Seeing that, Dao Huang was no longer angry. The corner of her mouth raised into a cold smile, and she said, Since it's like that, Su Yun, let us wait and see. The next match will be our match. You better be prepared. I will personally cripple your cultivation and make you a cripple for the rest of your life. With that said, she suddenly turned and waved her hand. Let's go. Chapter 429. When Dao Huang and the rest left, Su Yun's gaze turned back and looked at Dao Huang's back figure. He asked Lu Zhanyuan, who was beside him, with a look of anger, Who is Dao Huang? Hearing that, Lu Zhanyuan was startled. Brother Su, who don't even know Dao Huang, it's my first time in New Deer City. Do you have any backers? He's just a lone cultivator. How could he have any backing? Then why did you speak to her so forcefully? I thought you had a strong background and didn't fear the Quick Blade sect. Must I have a backer? Su Yun did not understand. Lu Zhanyuan's face turned pale white. He thought that Su Yun knew of Dao Huang. From how Su Yun was not afraid of Dao Huang and the rest, Lu Zhanyuan guessed that Su Yun's background was not simple, but who knew that Su Yun was just a fool who did not know anything. Oh no, this is bad. Lu Zhanyuan's eyes were panicking. He lowered his head and muttered to himself. He then suddenly turned and pressed on his Su Yun's shoulder. Brother Su, you better quickly apologize to Dao Huang and do as she says. If not, I am worried that you will not be able to leave New Deer City. Zhanyuan, do you think that's possible? Su Yun's voice gradually turned cold. Lu Zhanyuan was startled, then regained his senses, although he had not interacted with Su Yun for long. But he knew of Su Yun's personality. Who exactly is this Dao Huang? Is his influence in New Deer City that big? Su Yun asked. It's not that big, but it's not that big either. Lu Zhanyuan sighed. Brother Su, you should have seen it. She is wearing Quick Blade Sect's clothing, right? Yes. Sigh. Dao Huang's identity is not simple. She is actually the youngest daughter of the Quick Blade Sect's patriarch, and because she was born late, her cultivation is the lowest amongst the patriarch's children. The Quick Blade sect is not considered a powerful sect, but its strength is not to be underestimated. Even the city lord of New Deer City has to be wary of them. Although the Quick Blade sect is located far from here, countless of spirit cultivators who wish to curry favor with the Quick Blade sect will definitely help her. Even the city lord of New Deer City will protect her. If you offend her, wouldn't that be a disaster? Lu Zhanyuan sighed. I see. Su Yun lowered his head and thought. Since you're not willing to lower your head to Dao Huang, I think, Brother Su, you should hurry up and leave, escape as soon as possible, give up on the competition, and leave quickly. Leave? How could it be so simple? If they could, the contestants who didn't want to participate would have run away long ago. Lu Zhanyuan was startled. Then what do you plan to do? Su Yun shook his head. No plans. Let's continue the competition. Seeing that Su Yun was fearless, Lu Zhanyuan opened his mouth, but did not say a word. Just then, one of the spirit cultivators behind Dao Huang suddenly stood up and quickly walked toward a staff member standing by the side of the stage. The man whispered something into the staff member's ear, causing the staff member to nod his head. He secretly looked around, and then walked towards the host Juwon. Su Yun saw all of their actions, and his heart moved. Seems like Dao Huang is preparing to take action against me. This battle continued for around the time for an incense stick to burn before the victor was decided in the end. The loser's legs were chopped off, and there was a large hole in his chest, causing his profound energy to leak out, causing him to be unable to continue fighting. Although it wasn't very exciting, the audience watched with relish. All right, everyone, the competition has already reached its climax, and as everyone can see, there are not many people left in the participant stands, but the people that are left are the elites of the elites, the experts of the experts. They will definitely bring us a breathtaking battle and bring us a brand new feast for our eyes. Then, who will the next battle belong to? Zhu shouted loudly, then raised his fat hand and snapped his fingers in the air. Draw lots begin. With that said, the Group B participant stands immediately exploded with an intense light aura. Suyin glanced at it. It was Dao Huang. Dao Huang, you can do it. Miss Dao Huang, you can do it. You will definitely win. Dao Huang 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 will definitely win. When Dao Huang stood up, the people behind her immediately erupted into cheers. Following their shouts, a few of the spectators that liked Dao Huang also stood up and cheered loudly. In that moment, the entire audience was ignited. The name Dao Huang seemed to have covered the entire competition grounds. At that moment, Dao Huang seemed to be the main character. Lu Zhanyuan looked at the excited crowd around him and sighed helplessly. Just as Dao Huang's card released a light, the card in Su Yun's hand also released a light. Many pairs of eyes looked over. The opponent was Su Yun. How can it be so coincidental? Lu Zhanyuan was startled, but after thinking for a moment, he understood and roared. They definitely did something. They definitely did it on purpose. This matter has to be resolved sooner or later. It is better to resolve it now than to drag it on. Su Yun stood up and took out a cultivation coin card from his storage ring. He handed it over to Xiao Xiao, who was by the side, and said, Xiao Xiao, help me, bet it all on me. Bet that I will win. Young master, because of your previous victory, the betting house has set a new rule. Every bet cannot exceed 1,000,000 cultivation coins. Then bet 1,000,000 on me. Su Yun said indifferently. Yes. Xiao Xiao nodded her head. She then took the cultivation coin card and ran off. Su Yun took a light breath and walked towards the stage. The participants on his left and right all looked at him, their eyes filled with passion, curiosity, and respect. Su Yun, do your best. Lu Zhanyuan suddenly shouted. Although he used a lot of strength, he was injured and could not shout loudly. Adding that the entire place was filled with Dao Huang's voice, his voice was extremely insignificant. But just at that moment, shouts came out again. Su Yun, do your best. Defeat Dao Huang and win this round. Su Yun turned to look, only to see a participant from Group D standing up and shouting earnestly. That's right, defeat Dao Huang. And let those arrogant people from Group B know that although our cultivation is low, we are not weaker than them. Su Yun, we will definitely win. Su Yun, we will definitely win. Su Yun, we will definitely win. Another wave of angry shouts came out. The majority of them were from Group C and D. Even the participants who came out from their resting areas were shouting loudly, cheering for Su Yun. Although their voices could not be compared to Dao Huang's, but they were filled with an unyielding tenacity. Su Yun's mouth revealed a smile. He took large strides and walked up the stage. Dao Huang stood quietly on the left side of the stage, her hands hugging her breasts, her eyes closed. The thin, cold blade had long been unsheathed and was currently stabbed 3 steps in front of her. Upon Su Yun's ascension, she opened her eyes in that moment. The cold intent from the cold blade and the cold intent in her eyes assaulted everyone, causing their hair to stand uncontrollably. Good blade. Su Yun could not help but praise. This saber was extremely intelligent, and it could sense its master's state of mind. It had already developed a strong hostility towards him. In a fight, even if its master did not make a move, such a saber would still display its sharpness to the extreme. Bootlicking is useless now. Su Yun, since you are already on the stage, then you must pay the price for what you did previously. Dao Huang said indifferently. You seem to have gotten it wrong. I am bootlicking your blade, not yours. Don't think too highly of yourself. Su Yun said. Hearing that, Dao Huang's eyes tensed up. Killing intent surged out. She said sinisterly, "Then are you ready? I can start any time." "Very good." Dao Huang took a step forward and extended her hand to grab onto the blade hilt, then slowly closed her eyes. The profound spirit qi in her body was already restless. The attribute was wild blade qi. It was extremely violent, like a raging volcano waiting to erupt. Her strength is a level higher than by Mu Jian. She is, after all, the daughter of the Quick Blade sect leader. She is not old, but to have such a cultivation, she must have taken many shortcuts in her cultivation. But since she is a disciple of the Quick Blade sect, she should be extremely fast. Wiser spirit qi, not swift wind spirit qi, but wild blade spirit qi? Su Yun thought. He did not dare to be slow. He gathered his pure divine spirit qi and pulled out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword. The immortal mystical scarlet blood sword was extremely dazzling under the light aura. Upon its appearance, the majestic sword concept immediately suppressed the sharp blade. As a primal sword, the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword's grade was definitely not low. Even in the ultimate martial world, it was a treasured sword. What a strong spirit! One of the judges, Zhang Guahao, exclaimed in a low voice. Compared to the sword Su Yun used before, this sword seems to be of a higher grade. Seems like Su Yun has prepared a lot of swords for himself. Lu Guifeng said. She did not know that Su Yun already had a few thousand swords on him. Seeing that both parties were standing still, Zhuan did not speak anymore. He raised his hand and shouted, "Let the competition begin." In that moment, the entire place quietened down. No one was shouting anymore. All of them focused on the stage. Dao Huang's eyes were still closed, unmoving like the wind. Su Yun held onto the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and looked at her quietly, at her arms, legs, body, every single part. Suddenly, Dao Huang moved. She was like a lioness that had just awoken, her eyes instantly turning red. Ah! She released a roar. She suddenly pulled out her cold blade and fiercely slashed forward. In the blink of an eye, she had landed in front of Su Yun, and in the blink of an eye, she had slashed over 300 times in a second. It was extremely fast. What was even more surprising was that every single blade of hers was imbued with wild blade spirit qi, without any hint of swift wind spirit qi. Her speed was not because of spirit qi, but purely because of her body techniques, purely because of her ferocious strength. Su Yun frowned. He raised the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and brandished it crazily. Seemingly every sword strike collided with the thin blade that was slashing at him. The spectators below the stage only saw a blur between the two of them, a large amount of sparks and spirit qi rippling outwards. The sounds of clashing could be heard. "So fast," someone exclaimed to Dao Huang. "But Su Yun is even faster. Oh my God, Su Yun actually has such a fast speed. This is too inconceivable. He only has fighting strength of 3,000. He is a participant from Group D? That's impossible. With his strength, he can easily enter Group B." Everyone looked at the person on the stage in shock. Dao Huang seemed to have entered the battle. The blade in her hand was brandishing more and more ferociously, with the intention of using speed and ferocity to suppress Su Yun. However, Su Yun's speed was not slow either. He moved his arm, and a row of sword images swept out like a wave, directly knocking away Dao Huang's blade. Seeing that, everyone knew that Bai Mu Jian did not lose unjustly. Chapter 430. True Divine Spirit Qi emphasized on power. Swift Wind Spirit Qi emphasized on speed, while Wild Blade Spirit Qi emphasized on destruction and destruction. They were both fast, but in terms of destructive power, Su Yun's sword could not compare to Dao Huang's blade. As time passed, Dao Huang's eyes became more and more red. The speed at which she waved her arms became faster and faster, her destructive power becoming more and more ferocious. Her actions made Su Yun think of the Devil Sect's right protector, Mo Xian Quang. Mo Xian Quang was a demonic cultivator with 4 arms and a height of 3 m. He was born with bloodthirsty eyes and wielded a 5,000 kilograms blade. When fighting with people, he would use all four of his hands. At the start, he waved his blade slowly, but as the battle progressed, the berserk blood in his body was ignited. His strength, speed, reaction speed all increased greatly, and his blade waved faster and faster. Although the Devil Sect was powerful, but that was only to the people of Sky Martial Continent. In the ultimate martial world, the Devil Sect was not enough, and Dao Huang was obviously much stronger than Mo Xian Quan. But the two of them seemed to have the same symptoms. If they continued to fight with Dao Huang, her speed and destructive power would become more and more powerful, and they would most likely fall into a disadvantageous situation. Suddenly, Dao Huang fiercely stepped on the ground. She took a deep breath and roared. Ah! An earth-shattering roar exploded out like a lion's roar, causing everyone to feel dizzy from the sound. Su Yun, you can go and die now. Dao Huang stopped roaring. Her blade fiercely slashed towards Su Yun's head, with the intention of slicing him in half. Not good, a killing technique. Zhang Guohao's face changed. He anxiously stood up and wanted to help. But Dao Huang suddenly turned and looked at him coldly. Zhang Guohao's entire body trembled. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end he did not go up. He did not know what kind of background Su Yun had, but everyone knew of Dao Huang's background. As the daughter of the Quick Blade sect leader, offending her was equivalent to offending the Quick Blade sect. Maybe the organizers and the sponsors were not afraid of the Quick Blade sect, but he was just a small judge, a small rogue cultivator. How could he dare to provoke the Quick Blade sect? Then, just as everyone thought that Su Yun would be killed by that move, the Scarlet Blood Sword automatically flew out of Su Yun's hand and flew toward Dao Huang's thin blade. Clang! The blade and sword clashed. Although the Scarlet Blood Sword's strength was not strong, it changed the trajectory of the thin blade, causing it to brush past Su Yun's shoulder and cut into the ground. In that time, Su Yun had awoken from Dao Huang's roar. He held onto the Scarlet Blood Sword in mid-air and slashed at Dao Huang's shoulder. What surprised everyone was that when the sharp sword blade slashed on her shoulder, it was actually unable to penetrate even half an inch. The yellow clothes on Dao Huang's body suddenly hardened. Like a golden armor, it was difficult to break through. Magic treasure? Su Yun was startled. How can you break the imperial equipment of the 4-2? Su Yun, you don't have an imperial equipment to fight against me. You will definitely lose. Dao Huang said coldly, and slashed out another 300 blades. Su Yun hurriedly used his sword to block. 4-2 imperial equipment? Is this the 42-tier imperial equipment? Although it was not a match for his 7th-tier imperial equipment, it was still a defensive magic treasure. How could he use a defensive imperial equipment to break her imperial equipment? Wait a minute. Su Yun suddenly thought of something. Although the treasure clothes were imperial equipment, they were still clothes. The head, hands, and legs could not be protected. What if he directly attacked the places that were not protected by the treasure clothes? Thinking about that, Su Yun's eyes turned cold. He suddenly increased the speed of his sword. Unleashing the divine wind sword technique, his hands became like a gale that danced rapidly. The limit of the blade edge was 400 slashes in a breath, but Su Yun instantly increased the speed of his sword to 600 slashes. The opponent's speed suddenly increased, causing Dao Huang to be shocked. It was already difficult for her to block. She anxiously retracted her technique and retreated, but just as she was about to defend, she felt a pain on her face, followed by a gust of wind. Dao Huang's heart turned cold. She immediately roared out again, forcing Su Yun to retreat. She then retreated to the side of the stage. She extended her hand out to grab her face, only to see that there were 3 to 4 shallow sword wounds on her face, with traces of blood flowing out. So fast. Han Yuxian, who was in the Group A region, could not help but exclaim, "Fast!" Jiang Qinglong frowned. "Miss Han, are you saying that Dao Huang's blade is fast?" The Quick Blade sect is not a sect with an undeserved reputation. As the daughter of the sect leader, Miss Dao Huang's blade is naturally fast. Han Yuxian shook her head, her gaze locked onto Su Yun's body, and said softly, "I am not saying that Dao Huang's blade is fast. I am saying that Su Yun's sword is fast, Su Yun." Jiang Qinglong and the rest looked at each other. feeling perplexed. In truth, they cannot be blamed. Su Yun's sword speed had increased in less than a breath of time, causing everyone to be unable to see their blades and swords clearly. And now that Su Yun's speed had increased by another fold, how could they see him clearly? Seeing that Dao Huang's face was injured, everyone thought that Su Yun was lucky and managed to scrape her. I never thought that there would be someone in the world who can unleash such a fast sword. Li Chongzai, who had his hands crossed in front of his chest, suddenly spoke out. Han Yuxian looked at him and said indifferently, I wonder if young noble Li or him, whose sword will be faster. Li Chongzai's eyes congealed and said indifferently, I also want to know. On the stage, Dao Huang fiercely wiped off the blood on her face, the blood red in her eyes becoming even more vibrant. To a woman, the most important thing was her face, and to a female cultivator, the most important thing was also her face. Cultivation could be forsaken, life could be forsaken, but beauty could not be forsaken. Although Dao Huang was ruthless, she was still a woman, and the opponent actually dared to scratch her face. How could she accept such humiliation? From young until now, no one has ever hurt my face. Su Yun, I will tear you into 1,000 pieces. Dao Huang roared. She gripped her blade tightly and rushed forward again. When she got closer, Su Yun could clearly feel the wild blade spirit chi in her body transforming, forming a strange spirit chi. This spirit chi was faster than the swift wind spirit chi, stronger than the wild blade spirit chi, and it was a spirit chi that Su Yun had never seen before. When Dao Huang got closer, she roared out, Squall rainstorm! The thin blade released a dense amount of blade chi that smashed towards Su Yun like rain, complementing her fast and violent slashes. In a breath of time, she had unleashed over 1,000 attacks. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long been smashed into powder. Su Yun's face tensed up. Without hesitation, he quickly waved his hand and unleashed his 7th-tier Imperial equipment. A dense and majestic divine spirit chi enveloped his body. Regardless of how ferocious Dao Huang's attacks were, they were unable to break through the divine spirit chi. When the thin blade chi struck the divine spirit chi, it was as though it had struck an indestructible steel plate. Other than a few muffled sounds, there was not even a ripple. Imperial equipment? Dao Huang was shocked. How could she have thought that Su Yun would also have an Imperial equipment? And it was also a defensive type. My blade is fast. The blade chi is also stable, but just relying on this is not enough. Su Yun snorted. He stared at Dao Huang coldly and was no longer courteous. He tore off the Imperial equipment. The pure divine spirit chi in his body started to accumulate. The divine wind sword technique was unleashed. His arms started to make large movements. But every movement that seemed slow was actually formed from a large number of extremely fast and violent attacks. The sword attacks were truly like a gale and a torrential rain. Fast. This was a speed that surpassed all senses, that surpassed all sight. It was so fast that it caused people to suffocate. The speed of sound could not compare. The speed of wind and lightning, even the shadow of a sword, was so fast that no one could capture it. It was as though the entire world was being left behind by the sword. Dao Huang turned pale with fright. Her heart almost jumped out of her throat. She could feel it. She could feel the terrifying power and speed of the opponent that was as swift as an eagle. Dao Huang anxiously brandished her quick blade arts, blocking Su Yun's sword that was countless of times faster than lightning. Clang, 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 clang. A clear and crisp sound exploded out, but Dao Huang was terrified to realize that Su Yun's attack speed was many times faster than before. Her blade was unleashed by him a total of 3 times. How is the difference in speed so great? Dao Huang perspired in cold sweat as she thought. She suddenly realized that Su Yun had been concealing his strength the entire time. His speed was completely suppressed. Crack! Just then, an ear-piercing sound came out. Dao Huang's hand loosened, and the thin blade was instantly sent flying by the scarlet blood sword. It spun a few rounds in the air and dropped onto the stage. Shit! Dao Huang was startled, but before she could think, her abdomen was kicked, and she was sent flying. Su Yun stared at Dao Huang, who had lost her balance. Tightly holding onto the scarlet blood sword, he directly rushed forward. Previously, when he fought with Dao Huang, he only fought with the attitude of learning, hoping that he could learn from her techniques. But now he was no longer, because Dao Huang had already revealed killing intent many times. She hoped to kill me. She hoped to kill me. Since it's like that, I should not hold back anymore. Su Yun was a person who could differentiate between gratitude and enmity. If the other party wanted him dead, how could he sit and wait for death? He stared coldly at Dao Huang, who was on the ground, and directly rushed forward, his sword fiercely piercing towards her head. There were no treasured clothes protecting her. There was no defense. Su Yun, I am the daughter of the Quick Blade sect leader. You dare to kill me? Dao Huang was shocked. She immediately extended her hands out and grabbed onto the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword tightly, and gathered all of the spirit chi in her hands, grabbing onto the sword blade. But how sharp was the sword blade? Even with the support of spirit chi, Dao Huang's fingers were slowly being sliced apart. The sword blade slowly descended, and was about to reach Dao Huang's head. What? Why can't I kill you? You want to kill me? Why should I let you live? Su Yun's voice was ice cold. His pale white face under the hood was extremely sinister. Dao Huang's entire body trembled. For some reason, she felt that Su Yun was even more terrifying than a demon. Seeing the two of them in a deadlock, the entire place became silent, all of their round eyes staring blankly at the stage. All the participants were startled. What is Su Yun trying to do? Is he trying to kill Dao Huang? Should we stop him? Lu Gu smiled and asked. I don't think so. Su Yun will not kill Dao Huang. Unless he wants to offend the Quick Blade sect, he should know what to do. Lu Guifeng said. At that time, he should have cut off Dao Huang's arms or legs, causing her to lose her ability to fight, and he would have won the competition. But looking at how he is attacking Dao Huang's head, if that sword were to go down, wouldn't he take her life? Lu Gu said. I wonder what Su Yun is thinking. Zhang Guahao said. But just then, Xiao Ziru's face suddenly changed. She anxiously stood up and shouted, Participant Su Yun, quickly stop. Hearing that, the other three immediately looked towards the stage. Su Yun suddenly extended his left hand toward the sword sheath. He pulled out another subsword, and without saying a word, he stabbed towards Dao Huang's head. His speed was extremely fast. By the time Dao Huang reacted, the subsword had already arrived. Dao Huang opened her eyes wide. She wanted to receive the sword, but it was too late. She could not even withstand a scarlet blood sword. How could she withstand the other sword? Puchi! The sound of flesh being pierced came out. Following that, Dao Huang's hand that was holding onto the scarlet blood sword loosened and fell to the ground powerlessly. Without Dao Huang's resistance, the scarlet blood sword continued to stab downwards, and once again pierced through Dao Huang's right eye. Chapter 431. It was as though the scene froze. The entire competition grounds was silent. Participants, spectators, judges, hosts, everyone stared at the stage with their mouths agape. The scene was extremely strange. Dao Huang twitched a few times and was completely motionless. Her brain had been stabbed twice. Unless she had a special treasure to extend her life, she would definitely die. Su Yun stood up. He took out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and the sub-sword, and slowly kept them back into the sword sheath, as though nothing had happened. This time, everyone regained their senses. Lu Guifeng suddenly rushed up the stage and squatted down beside Dao Huang's body to check. When she realized that Dao Huang was dead, her face immediately changed. She anxiously took out a pill and threw it in her mouth to chew, then lowered her head and spat it into Dao Huang's mouth. After that, she immediately raised her head and stared coldly at Su Yun and bellowed, Capture him! Yes! A few patrolling guards immediately ran over. Seeing that, Su Yun frowned. Why do you want to capture me? You killed Dao Huang. You killed a participant. Don't tell me you want to stay out of this? Lu Guifeng said coldly. Su Yun shook his head. I accidentally killed her. According to the rules of the competition, accidentally killing someone is not punishable. Accidentally? Just because you say it's an accident, it's an accident? Who do you think you are? Lu Gui Fong snorted. I am Su Yun. But who are you guys? Su Yun said indifferently. Aren't you the judges invited by the organizers? Shouldn't you guys have stopped me when I accidentally killed Dao Huang? Why didn't you? If Dao Huang died, you guys should bear half of the responsibility because you guys did not fulfill your responsibilities. So, if you guys want to capture me, you guys will not be able to escape responsibility. You. Lu Gui Fong was immediately speechless. Although she was a judge, she was not the biggest person here. There were still 4 pavilions above them, and the people seated there were the ones in charge. To put it nicely, the 4 of them were judges, but to put it bluntly, they were just workers. Just then, Judge Zhang Guahao stood up. Participant Su Yun is right. Accidentally killing someone is accidentally killing someone. They should not be held responsible, after all. If it was intentional, how could we not see it? How could he not stop them? It was because of a mistake. It was completely out of everyone's expectations. That's why participant Dao Huang died. It can only be said to be an accident. The fault is not on participant Su Yun. When the other 2 judges heard this, they fell silent. Actually, Zhang Guahao's words were rather tactful. If these people agreed with Lu Gui Fong's words that Su Yun had intentionally killed someone, then the 4 of them would have no face left. If a contestant could intentionally kill someone in front of these judges, then wouldn't the judges be useless? How can we do that? Are we just going to let it go like this? Suddenly, an angry roar came from the group B contestants' seats. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, only to see a few Quick Blade Sect participants standing up, staring at Su Yun with uncontrollable anger. The scrawny brute who had met Su Yun at the door before stood up, angrily pointed at Su Yun and said, Su Yun must pay with his life. He killed our senior sister. How can we just let it go? We want him to pay with his life. Yes, he must pay with his life. Su Yun must die. He must die. The Quick Blade Sect's participants roared out emotionally. It was not only them. Even a few spirit cultivators who wanted to curry favor with the Quick Blade Sect, or even like Dao Huang, stood up and protested loudly. It was the first time someone had accidentally killed someone in the competition, and naturally, the repercussions were not small. During the competition, the participants from both sides would intentionally avoid attacking the opponent's head. Regardless of how strong a spirit cultivator was, the brain and heart were vital points. Upon being struck, even if they did not die, they would be crippled. Bang! Suddenly, a muffled sound came out. Following that, one of the judges, Xiao Ziru, stood up and looked around coldly, then snorted. What are all of you doing? Are you guys trying to rebel? Everyone kept quiet. Seeing that Xiao Ziru had spoken up, the Quick Blade Sect's people became more obedient, but their eyes were still staring at her with unwillingness. The scrawny brute walked forward and walked out of the participants' seating area and cupped his fist toward Xiao Ziru. Master Xiao, we do not have any other intentions. We just hope to seek justice. Dao Huang cannot die in vain. Justice? What justice? This is a competition. People dying is a common thing. Didn't we already state the rules clearly? Xiao Ziru said coldly. I hope that all of you will not create trouble for me. If you hate Su Yun for killing Dao Huang, then after the competition, your Quick Blade Sect can go and find Su Yun to settle the score, but now, in this place, all of you are not allowed to cause any trouble. If not, I will destroy all of your cultivations and throw all of you out. You, the scrawny brute, was enraged. But the people behind pulled him back in time. Senior brother, don't be angry. This competition is organized by all the big trading organizations. Xiao Ziru is a judge and is considered an official. If we provoke her here, we will provoke all the big trading organizations. At that time, even the sect leader will not be able to protect us. One of the Quick Blade Sect disciples said anxiously, Are we just going to let go like that? The scrawny brute clenched his teeth and said softly, Something happened to Dao Huang here. If we return to the Quick Blade Sect, we will definitely be punished by the sect leader. Su Yun only injured her fleshly body. Her soul still exists. We will first bring back senior sister's corpse. The sect leader will definitely have a way to revive her. Hearing that, the scrawny brute thought for a moment, then clenched his fists and nodded. If she revives like that, she will not be able to preserve her cultivation, but it is good to be able to preserve her life. Let's do it that way. The Quick Blade sect people stopped. Seeing that, Xiao Ziru then turned to Zhu, who was still in a daze, and said, "Continue the competition." "Oh, yes, yes." Zhu nodded his head, then shouted out, "All right, everyone. Although there was an accident in the competition, it does not affect us. Next, let us proceed to the next round." The spectators immediately cheered out. The next round of the competition started with the passion of the spectators. It was not rare for people to die in a competition in the ultimate martial world, but the person who died this time was rather special. It was the daughter of the Quick Blade sect leader. A few people could not help but worry for Su Yun. The Quick Blade sect's people kept Dao Huang's corpse, and a few of the Quick Blade sect disciples who had already been eliminated quickly brought it over to the sect leader for treatment. Xiao Ziru and Lu Gu then soared into the sky and headed towards one of the 4 pavilions. The 2 of them stood outside the pavilion and bowed to the people inside. After obtaining permission, the 2 of them entered the pavilion. After a while, the 2 of them left the pavilion and returned to their own seats to continue watching the competition. Su Yun returned to his own seat. His expression did not change. But other than Lu Zhanyuan, everyone else subconsciously sat further away, as though they were intentionally maintaining a distance from Su Yun. Su Yun understood their feelings. Although the trading organizations did not care about the Quick Blade sect, but the lone cultivators were different. How could they contend against a sect? Su Yun had killed Dao Huang and had offended the Quick Blade sect. He was their number 1 enemy. If they were to get close to him, who knew if they would be mistaken for him and be implicated? Lu Zhanyuan did not know what to say about Su Yun anymore. Previously, he had advocated for Su Yun to give up on the competition, but who knew that not only did Su Yun not give up, he even killed Dao Huang. Compared to the other participants, he was much more ruthless. Lu Zhanyuan hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "Many sects have a type of communication treasure. I guess that the news of you killing Dao Huang will quickly reach the sect leader of the Quick Blade sect." The sect leader of the Quick Blade sect is a vengeful and ruthless man. He has most likely already mobilized the experts of the Quick Blade sect to rush here. Brother Su, how do you plan to deal with them? Let's finish the competition first, then leave New Deer City. Su Yun said indifferently. Hearing that, Lu Zhanyuan opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but seeing Su Yun's calm face, the words that were about to come out of his mouth were stuck in his throat. Including Su Yun, there are only 4 participants left in Group C and D. The rest had been eliminated, while Group A and B only had 9 people left, and it seemed like the competition would end soon. Just then, light auras lit up again. It was the participant from Group A and B. Everyone anxiously looked towards the place where the light auras were released. The participant from Group B was a robust man dressed in heavy armor, holding onto a gigantic pumpkin hammer. It was said that his true divine spirit chi was extremely dense and could split mountains and seas. His entire body was extremely tough. No one was able to break through his body, and he was hailed as King Kong by everyone. When Group A's light aura lit up, the entire competition grounds immediately exploded. Hanyu Xin. Cold Sword Hanyu Xin. Up till now, no one knew how many rounds had been fought, but Group A's Cold Sword Hanyu Xin had never appeared. No one knew if it was intentional or a coincidence, but at the end of the competition, she was chosen. That's great. It's finally our goddess' turn. Hanyu Xin, you can do it. Hanyu Xin, you must definitely win. A few of the excited spectators shouted out. In the resting area, many participants with light injuries walked out and looked towards the competition grounds. All of their faces were filled with anticipation. It is said that Cold Sword Hanyu Xin is a famous genius. Someone said that she is already at the 5th stage of Spirit Master Realm. 5th stage of Spirit Master Realm? Why did the information say that she only has a fighting strength of 5,000? She seems to have a treasure that can change the display of fighting strength. The proof of qualifications shows 5,000 fighting strength, but it is actually fake. Her true fighting strength is far greater than that. There is such a treasure? Then let's take a good look at her strength. Hanyu Xin stood up. and walked toward the stage. She was dressed in light blue robes. Her white fingers held onto a slender blue sword. Her long hair fluttered in the wind. She was extremely agile. Her facial features were exquisite. Her eyes were bright, and her teeth were white, and her entire body was shrouded by an ice mist that seemed to never disperse. From afar, she looked like a blue lotus that bloomed in winter. When King Kong saw his opponent, he was slightly surprised, but he was not afraid. He roared and jumped up the stage. Boom! The entire stage started to shake, as though a mountain had smashed onto it. But the entire stage shook crazily, but Han Yuxin looked as though she was walking on flat ground, walking lightly on the unstable stage. Seeing that, King Kong stabilized the stage and stared angrily at Han Yuxin, who only reached his waist. Miss Han, I've always admired you, and I also hope that you can become my dual cultivation partner. If you agree, I can immediately admit defeat. If you don't agree, I promise that even if it's you, I won't show any mercy. King Kong said, boasting shamelessly, you are not worthy to be my dual cultivation companion. Han Yuxin said coldly, without a trace of politeness. Hearing that, King Kong's face became enraged. He roared out like a wild beast. Since it is like that, then fine. I hope you will not regret your words. Han Yuxin did not reply. She raised the sword in her hand and slowly unsheathed it from the sword sheath. In that moment, the temperature of the entire stage dropped rapidly, dropping to -40 degrees, and the temperature was still dropping. Su Yun looked over, only to realize that Han Yuxin's sword was only half out of the sword sheath. Chapter 432. As so cold. Zhu Wen shivered. He anxiously flipped down the stage. When he looked at the stage again, he was surprised to realize that the entire stage was actually covered with a thin layer of ice. Host, you can announce the start of the competition. Han Yuxin looked at King Kong and said indifferently, Oh, all right, the competition will now begin. Zhu Wen's teeth were chattering as he shouted. Boom! The bell sounded out. In that moment, King Kong on the stage moved. The true divine spirit chi on his entire body was like a myriad of beasts. In that moment, every part of his body, his limbs, his torso, his head, his blood vessels, his internal organs, his blood vessels, and even his eyelids. He stepped on the ground and rushed towards Han Yuxin, causing the entire stage to shake violently, as though there was a magnitude 10 earthquake. The layer of ice on the stage instantly shattered, uprooting mountains and rivers. King Kong held onto the pumpkin hammer with both of his hands. He roared and swung it towards Han Yuxin fiercely. The pressure caused the air to tremble. The ferocious attack caused the spectators to tremble in fear. They were all extremely frightened. Even the spectators who were watching from the sidelines could not help but feel fear in their hearts. Clang! A strange, clear, and crisp sound suddenly came out. Everyone anxiously looked over, only to see Han Yuxin's body suddenly congealing a layer of ice. When the hammer smashed onto the ice remained unscathed. But the force of the hammer passed through the ice and directly struck the stage beneath them. With a bang sound, the stage crumbled, countless of cracks appeared, the ground even started to crack inch by inch, causing the entire competition grounds to sway. What a powerful force! But what was even more shocking was Han Yuxin's strange cold ice force. Crack! Just then, the ice covering Han Yuxin's body shattered. Han Yuxin broke out of the ice and stabbed towards King Kong's eyes. Like a star in the night sky, King Kong anxiously closed his eyes. The ice blue sword stabbed into his eyelids, but was unable to pierce through at all. His eyelids were as though they were made of steel. Han Yuxin did not panic. She turned her body and flew into the air, increasing the distance between her and King Kong. She then brandished her ice blue sword at King Kong, releasing a gust of wind and snow that blew at King Kong. The King Kong's body slowed down. Large amounts of ice began to form on its lower body, and the ice quickly spread toward its upper body. This alone won't be enough to restrict me. The Vajra twisted its body and let out a thunderous roar. True divine spirit chi exploded from his body, directly shattering the ice on the surface. All right, the spectators exclaimed in surprise. I didn't expect this King Kong to be so powerful despite looking so clumsy. His true divine spirit chi is really thick. Zhang Guohao couldn't help but praise. But he is still not Han Yu Xian's opponent. Xiao Ziru said coldly. Oh. Zhang Guohao blinked his eyes and continued to stare at the stage. Han Yu Xian landed gracefully on the ground, holding on her ice blue sword. She quickly waved it at King Kong, causing a large amount of snowflakes to shoot out from the sword, forming a blizzard. King Kong's body was constantly being covered in ice. He gathered his chi to shatter the ice, but when the ice shattered, it would quickly condense again, repeating endlessly. King Kong was enraged. After struggling for a while, he scolded Han Yu Xian. Han Yu Xian, is that all you have? If you have the guts, fight me head on. What's the point of using such despicable methods? Oh, despicable? Han Yu Xian frowned and said coldly. Since it's like that, then let's fight head on. With that said, Han Yu Xian stepped forward and rushed towards King Kong. Seeing that, King Kong immediately swung his sledgehammer at Han Yu Xian, but Han Yu Xian's body was light and agile. Her movements were nimble. She circled around King Kong and brandished her sword, dodging and attacking at the same time. She was like a butterfly dancing gracefully. It was a delightful sight to behold. The ice blue sword continued to pierce King Kong's body, but his gigantic body was extremely sturdy. No matter how much strength Han Yu Xian used, she was unable to pierce through him at all. Ha 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 ha, my true divine spirit chi is enough to forge my body into an indestructible diamond body. You can't hurt me. King Kong laughed maniacally. He took a deep breath. His gigantic and thick hands released a large amount of red light. Following that, his arms started to move, causing everyone to be shocked. The sledgehammer he was brandishing seemed to have become much lighter. His attack speed suddenly increased, and he started to attack Han Yu Xian. Boom, 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 boom. Every time the sledgehammer landed, it would be like a bomb exploding. The ice would shatter, causing a large amount of ice fog to form, covering the entire stage. Seeing the white stage, Su Yun's eyes suddenly tensed up. He seemed to have sensed something. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past, and the stage suddenly stopped moving. The sound of King Kong swinging his sledgehammer crazily disappeared, and the stage that was collapsing also stopped shaking. It was as though the competition had ended. The spectators held their breaths and anxiously looked towards the stage. When the ice fog dissipated, a gigantic ice sculpture appeared in the center of the stage. The ice sculpture was squarish, and in the center was King Kong. At that moment, he was completely sealed by the ice. No matter how he struggled, he was unable to break out. What's going on? Suddenly, how did Han Yu Xian conjure out so much frigid ice force and directly sealed King Kong in ice? What mystical technique is that? Everyone asked in confusion. Powerful. Evaluator Xiao Ziru seemed to have seen through Han Yu Xian's methods and could not help but exclaim out, "What? Did Miss Xiao see anything?" Lu Gu asked. Although the ice fog had spread out, but with their cultivation, they were able to see what was happening. Lu Gu only saw Han Yu Xian casually striking King Kong and immediately congealing a large amount of ice around him, sealing him. Such a terrifying technique. Did Han Yu Xian possess such a technique? In truth, from the start, Han Yu Xian had always been preparing for this technique. All of you only saw her sealing King Kong, but did not see the ice fog that permeated the stage. Xiao Ziru said indifferently. The ice fog is actually the main reason why King Kong was sealed. Previously, when Han Yu Xian used her spirit chi to release the wind and snow, her goal was not to seal King Kong, but to prepare to seal him in ice. She already knew that ordinary ice could not control King Kong. That was why she used this technique. Hearing that, the other three evaluators immediately understood. No wonder the ice fog that permeated the stage was not a coincidence. But now that he is sealed by the ice fog, although he cannot move, he is protected by the ice. How can Han Yu Xian injure him? If this goes on, when the time is up, it will be a draw, and Han Yu Xian will not be able to win. Lu Gue Fong asked. That will depend on what she is prepared to do. Xiao Ziru stared at the beautiful figure on the stage. Everyone turned to look at the stage. After sealing King Kong, Han Yuexan did not stop. She moved her lotus steps, like a spirit. She quickly moved around the gigantic ice block. The sword in her hand was like a mirror decorated with stars. Following her graceful movements, a large amount of star-like substances floated in the air. When everything was over, Han Yuexan leapt back gracefully. Like a feather, she landed at the side of the stage. She raised her hand and waved it. Crack! Hair-sized cracks appeared on the huge block of ice. The moment the cracks appeared, the specks of stars were like magnets, directly rushing toward the King Kong inside through the cracks. So countless white lights could be seen piercing through King Kong's body. Just as he was about to break through the cracks, he was struck by the white light, causing him to become motionless. After being sealed in ice, all the functions in the body will gradually stop. The profound spirit chi will also slowly stop, and King Kong's outer layer of defense will become lax. When the ice loosens, he will not be able to gather divine spirit chi to defend his body in a short period of time. Thus Han Yuexan was able to break his body. This mystical technique is extremely strange. I wonder how many strange mystical techniques there are in the ultimate martial world. Su Yun stared at the stage and muttered. Whoosh! The ice shattered, and King Kong's body could see the light of day again. However, he did not move again. He stood in the same frozen position. After a while, the huge hammer fell to the ground with a thud. King Kong's arms and legs were suddenly broken and turned into sections. His body became a human stick and fell to the ground. Although he was not dead, his appearance was extremely miserable. His wounds were covered by the ice mist, and his blood had congealed, showing how powerful Han Yuexan was. The entire place was silent. The victor had been decided. The spectators could only watch with their eyes wide open. Zhu Wen regained his senses. Looking at the messy stage, he shouted out with a trembling voice. The winner is the participant from Group A Han Yuexan. After a few seconds, everyone regained their senses, and in the next moment, a tsunami of cheers sounded out, as though everyone was chanting Han Yuexan's name. Han Yuexan! Han Yuexan! Miss Han Yuexan, I love you. Good. King Kong was a peak expert who had fought his way into the top 20, possessing a cultivation of the third stage of the Spirit Master realm. But facing such a powerful opponent, Han Yuexan was actually able to deal with him without suffering any injuries. That strength, along with her cold and beautiful appearance, had conquered many people. This Han Yuexan is interesting. Above the stage, in the Western Pavilion, a blurry figure nodded his head and said, Han Yuexan's talent is extremely good. Her master is the Ice Heart Hall, and her own divine Ice Jade Manual is a high-grade mystical technique. It is not surprising for her to have such strength, but what I find strange is that our competition was actually able to attract her over. That is what is surprising. Huaquan Kai, who was standing by the side, cupped his fists and said with a smile, regardless of what her goal is for participating in the competition, you better be prepared. I believe that in a few rounds, you will meet her. I hope that you do not disappoint me. Master, rest assured, Quan Kai will definitely do his best. Huaquan Kai immediately replied, all of our trading organizations have sent representatives. This is not only your competition. It is our competition as well. If you win, not only will you give me face, it will also involve an agreement. We are competing for the management rights of a region, and whoever wins, the management rights of that region will belong to that person. So your opponent is not only Han Yuexan, there will be experts from the other 3 families. You must be careful. If you need any treasures, just tell me. Yes, Master. Chapter 433. Han Yuexan's battle was like a beautiful flower in the winter, causing everyone's eyes to light up. The beautiful and breathtaking battle was like a flash in the pan. Although the strength of the participants in the next few battles were not bad, but the spectators were already bored, and their interest was greatly reduced. Soon, the top 14 of the tournament were decided. Group D participant, Su Yun. Group C, none. Group B participants, Chen Jialu, Zhang Ziluo, Zhang Jiao. Group A, first rank, Cold Sword Han Yu Xin, Blade Sword Martial Emperor Shen Wuya, Quick Sword Li Chong Zai, Xin Master Jiang Qing Long, Heavy Sword Sec Senior Brother Hua Yashan, Ingenious Technique Yuan Shun. The four great official experts, Huawei Commerce's Hoa Quan Kai, Yushuang Auction House's Qin Si, New Deer Auction House's Li Qin, General Ring Chain Commerce's Lu Lang. A Group D participant was able to make it into the top 14. Many people were shocked. Everyone in Group C had already been eliminated, let alone Group D. Who would have thought that there would still be one person left in Group D? He believed that such a thing had never happened in any of the previous competitions. Brother Su, there's no need to wait for the competition to end. Your name has already shaken the entire New Deer City. I never expected that you would be able to reach here with just your fighting strength of 3,000. It truly is shocking. Lu Zhanyuan could not help but praise. 3,000 combat power? If I had sufficient skills, there might be hope for me to reach this rank, but without skills, I would definitely not be able to reach this step. Zhanyuan, actually my fighting strength is not 3,000. My current fighting strength is already breaking through 5,200. Suyin said indifferently. What? Lu Zhanyuan was shocked. 5,000 combat power? Wouldn't that be the third grade of Spirit Master? Rank 3? No. Although he was about to enter the second grade, he was still far from the third grade. The reason why he had so much fighting power was related to the magic treasures and mystical skills on him. Furthermore, he had fought all the way, fought countless opponents, experienced countless life and death battles, and naturally obtained a lot of fighting power. Thus, the number on the proof of qualifications was very high, and was already comparable to a third-grade Spirit Master cultivator. Lu Zhanyuan thought that Su Yun was being humble, and did not continue asking. Top 14. Thousands of geniuses, experts, and elites from all over the world. These 14 people will be the core of this competition. They will be the existences that stand at the peak of the entire competition. However, the competition isn't over yet. The battle between the geniuses is still ongoing. Now, we will choose the strongest among these 14 people. Who will be the final winner of this competition? Please wait and see. Zhu Wen was still shouting loudly, trying to lighten the mood. The previous few matches were rather intense, and the stage was severely damaged, but fortunately, the organizers were prepared. There was a recovery formation that cost 500,000 cultivation coins to build under the stage, imitating a human's recovery ability, and all the damaged areas were repaired. So the stage recovered extremely quickly, and the competition was able to proceed quickly. Just then, Zhu Wen took out a long pillar from the spatial bag beside him. The pillar was filled with engravings. He instigated a bit of spirit chi, causing the engravings to light up like firewood, releasing a dazzling light aura. The light aura quickly reached the top of the pillar, then shot out of the pillar and into the blue sky. In that moment, the light aura exploded in the sky, causing sparks to fly everywhere. After the sparks were extinguished, a gigantic golden light screen appeared. On the light screen were the names of Su Yun and the other top 14 participants, which continued to move, and after 5 breaths of time, 4 names appeared on the light screen. The next 2 matches will be held. The participants' names have already been revealed. The first match will be the mystical technique expert Jiang Qing Long against the ingenious technique expert Yuan Shun, and the second match will be Group B participant Xin Jiao Lu against Yushuang Auction House representative Qin Si. With that said, the entire competition grounds erupted with excited cheers. The door to the pavilion on the southern side of the arena opened, and a man with brown hair and brown eyes walked out. His expression was very cold, and there was a fierce light in his eyes, like that of a ferocious beast. He left the pavilion and directly landed on the arena. His aura was extraordinary, and he was overbearing. Seeing that, Group B participant Chen Jia Lu's face became ugly. He hesitated for a moment, then wielded a blade in his hand and quickly walked towards the stage. At the side of the main stage was a newly constructed stage. The mystical technique expert Jiang Qing Long and the ingenious technique expert Yuan Shun were already standing there with their stances ready to attack at any time. Jiang Qing Long was a famous mystical technique expert in New Deer City, possessing the powerful cultivation of the fourth stage of the Spirit Master realm. He was not old, only 230 years old, and was a true genius. There were many people in the ultimate martial world who had just stepped into the Spirit Master realm at his age, and there were even some who had not. It was said that he trained in 5 different profound spirit chi and had bitterly trained in over 100 different mystical techniques. He had combined all of these mystical techniques to form over 300 different battle techniques and was truly an erudite master and expert. His weapon was extremely strange. It was a pole covered with runes. His robes, hat, boots, and even his belt were all covered with runes and were extremely profound. Ingenious technique Yuan Shan was also not an ordinary person. His cultivation was not high, only at the second stage of the Spirit Master realm, and was the lowest amongst the participants in Group A, but what made people admire him was his fighting techniques. He was not like the other mystical cultivators who used profound spirit chi as their main source of battle, but what he truly relied on was his body techniques and his own body. He used a pair of gloves, but it was unknown how many people's weapons have been destroyed and how many people's arms have been broken. The representative of the Yu Shuang auction house, Qin Si. It was the first time many people had heard of this name. In the previous competitions, the representatives of the various trading organizations and the officials had never fought, other than Huaquan Kai, who occasionally showed his face. Qin Si and Chun Jialu's match was without any suspense. To be able to be the representative of the officials, how could his strength be weak? Even Chun Jia Lu himself knew what was going on. As expected, in less than 10 breaths of time, Chun Jia Lu's sternum and ribs were broken. A few of his chi channels were broken, and he instantly fainted, suffering a crushing defeat. After Qin Si obtained victory, he did not even look at Chun Jia Lu and directly flew up towards the pavilion. His actions were confident and decisive, causing some people to be enraged, feeling that Qin Si was being pretentious, while others were attracted by his swift and decisive actions, causing the spectators to have different opinions of Qin Si. But Jiang Qinglong and Yuan Chen's battle was not over yet. The two of them were experts in battle. One was an expert in tactics, the other was an expert in techniques. The two of them were no longer competing with profound spirit chi, but with their own techniques, which made the battle extremely exciting. Jiang Qinglong brandished his pole and pierced the ground, causing a large amount of frost to form and shoot towards Yuan Shen. Yuan Shen did not panic at all. He exerted strength in his legs and jumped up, his body facing the ground. He continuously brandished his fists, releasing a large amount of profound spirit chi towards the frost. What surprised everyone was that while he was punching the ground, he would get closer to Jiang Qinglong, using the profound spirit chi released from his fists to move forward. Incinerate heaven and earth, Jiang Qinglong bellowed. The profound spirit chi in his body transformed into the Scarlet Sun attribute, causing the surrounding temperature to rise, and a large amount of profound spirit chi fell onto the stage, causing the scene to be extremely grand. Seeing that, Yuan Chen's face changed. He anxiously bellowed, probing Dragon Hand. With that said, Yuan Chen's hand suddenly extended infinitely, like a rubber band. He suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Qinglong and grabbed onto his shoulder, pulling him over. Jiang Qinglong was shocked. He immediately grabbed onto his pole and unleashed swift wind spirit chi, intending to cut off Yuan Chen's hand, but unexpectedly, Yuan Shen used his other hand to grab onto Jiang Qinglong's pole. His hand was sliced open by the swift wind spirit chi on the pole, causing blood to flow out, but he ignored it and grabbed onto Jiang Qinglong tightly. At that moment, Jiang Qinglong and Yuan Shen were standing together. If Jiang Qinglong's killing technique were to land, the two of them would definitely be injured. Jiang Qinglong knew of Yuan Chen's goal and cursed in his heart, but he did not dare to forcefully remove the incinerate heaven and earth technique. Once it was removed, Jiang Qinglong would forcefully retract the mystical technique, causing the profound spirit chi to flow in reverse, his chi channels to surge, his body would be in turmoil, and he would suffer from the backlash, suffering heavy injuries, and in a short period of time, it would be difficult for his profound spirit qi to continue activating the mystical technique. If he were to remove it, Yuan Shan would retaliate with another attack, and the victor would be decided. Aren't you going to remove it? Seeing the fiery clouds getting lower and lower, Yuan Shan asked anxiously. If I remove it, I will lose. If I don't remove it, I might still have a chance of winning. Jiang Qinglong said coldly. But if I don't remove it, and I might die. Yuan Shan clenched his teeth and said, Humph, what are you afraid of? Don't participants often die in the competition? For have already died in the competition. Adding 2 more won't be much. With that, Jiang Qinglong closed his eyes and chanted, activating his profound spirit qi. The fiery clouds above their heads immediately swelled up. The temperature rose, and the might was much stronger than before. Why, you lunatic? Yuan Shan's eyes revealed a look of fear. Looking at the fiery clouds that were getting lower and lower, his body trembled. Although he relied on his techniques to fight evenly with Yuan Shan, but there was a gap of 2 stages of cultivation between him and Yuan Shan. In terms of cultivation time, the 2 of them were the same, and in terms of talent, Yuan Shan could not compare to Jiang Qinglong at all. Jiang Qinglong was a true genius, while Yuan Shan was just an ordinary spirit cultivator. But in terms of hard work, even Jiang Qinglong could not compare to Yuan Shan. He knew that his talent could not compare to other spirit cultivators, and if he continued to bury his head in training, he would not be able to stand out. What was the most important benefit of cultivation? Wasn't it an omnipotent and powerful strength? Because of that, Yuan Shan started his own bitter training. Cultivation brought strength, but strength was not cultivation. Killing techniques were also a form of strength. Yuan Shan comprehended this point and started a long and arduous training. In the competition, he was able to fight evenly with Jiang Qinglong. It was not because Jiang Qinglong was too weak, but because of his many years of hard work. Just that, in the current situation, there was one thing that could not be made up for. That was the toughness of his body. A 4th-stage spirit master cultivator, what kind of vast spirit qi was hidden in his body? The spirit qi supported his body and protected his body. His defense was extremely strong. And a 2nd-stage spirit master cultivator could not compare. That also meant, if the fiery clouds were to smash down, maybe Jiang Qinglong would not die, but Yuan Shan, who was 2 stages lower than him, would most likely be killed by the fiery clouds. Even if he did not die, his injuries would definitely not be lighter than Jiang Qinglong. If he were to forcefully take this attack, Yuan Shan would definitely lose. He clenched his teeth and finally made a decision. He released his hand and turned to run. But just as he was about to let go, a hand suddenly grabbed him. Yuan Shan was shocked. He turned to look, only to see Jiang Qinglong. This time, Jiang Qinglong actually did not plan to let him go. Bang! A gigantic explosion sounded out, and a sea of flames ignited the entire stage. Chapter 434. Yuan Shan was heavily injured and on the verge of death. He was sent to the resting area to receive emergency treatment. While Jiang Qinglong was not lightly injured either, the majority of his treasures were destroyed, many of his spirit essences were burnt, and he had almost lost his cultivation due to his own technique. Thus, he was currently accompanying Yuan Shan in the resting area. Although Jiang Qinglong had won, his technique was too ferocious, and he was afraid that he would not be able to handle the rest of the battle. Exciting, truly too exciting. I never thought that the 4 participants would actually bring us such an exciting battle. The host, Zhu Wen, started to brag again. If Yuan Shan and Jiang Qinglong's battle was exciting, then so be it, but Qin Si and Chun Jialu's battle was just an interlude. The atmosphere was still boiling, as though the spectators were still immersed in the aftermath of Jiang Qinglong's Burning Heavens mystical technique. The stage started to recover. The main point was not Zhu Wen's words, but the gigantic golden screen in the sky. As soon as Zhu Wen finished speaking, the light screen flickered again. It should be time to go up. Su Yin took a deep breath and stared at the screen. At that moment, The spectators all turned to look at the screen as well. Good. Now, a new participant has appeared. First match. First rank Cold Sword Han Yu Xin against Group B participant Zheng Ziluo. Second match. Group D participant Su Yun against Group B participant Zhang Jiao. Roar. When the participants were decided, the entire field immediately erupted in cheers. Han Yu Xin, 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 Han Yu Xin. Everyone were shouting out for the lady dressed in blue. Some were excited, some were excited, some were in awe, some were in awe. At that moment, the lady was like a goddess, dazzling in the eyes of everyone. Her face was cold as ice. Her eyes were deep, facing the tsunami of cheers. Her eyebrows did not move at all, as though everything around her had nothing to do with her. The four evaluators and the host, Zhu Wan, all looked at the lady. Without question, the main character of the two matches was not Zheng Ziluo, not Zhang Jiao, not even Su Yun. It was Han Yu Xin. Luckily, your opponent is not Han Yu Xin. Brother Su, you can do it. Lu Zhanyuan could not help but look at Han Yu Xin, then turned back and laughed. Su Yun nodded and stood up. He waved at Xiao Xiao and walked towards the stage. The four contestants stepped onto the stage. But more than 70% of the spectators were focused on Han Yu Xin. Regardless of gender or age, watching her battle was like watching a performance. No matter how strong or weak her opponent was, she would use her most beautiful posture and most magnificent sword skills to defeat her opponent. Su Yun had seen the competition between Han Yu Xin and Gold Steel and had analyzed a thing or two. Han Yu Xion's sword was not only cold, not only was it beautiful, it was also very practical. Everything about her was perfect. Her cultivation, her calculations, her wisdom. It was as though she had grasped everything in her hands. Such an opponent was much harder to deal with than by Mu Jian and Dao Huan. I am truly lucky. I thought that I would be matched up against Han Yu Xin. I never thought that I would be matched up against you. The opposing contestant, Zhang Jiao, revealed a relaxed tone and smiled. Su Yun frowned. Seeing that, Zhang Jiao anxiously waved his hands. Master Su Yun, don't misunderstand. It is not that I'm looking down on you, but it is truly haha about that. You know of Miss Han Yu Xion's strength. If I were to face her, I have no chance of winning, but against you, maybe I can give it my all. Aha. Su Yun shook his head. I will give it my all, regardless of whether I am strong or weak. I hope that you will give it your all. With that said, Su Yun retrieved a white sub-sword from the sword sheath. His magnanimity was not that small. He naturally knew of Zhang Jiao's thoughts. But participating in this competition, Su Yun's goal was to gain combat strength, to gain experience. This was also a kind of training for himself. Perhaps at some point, winning or losing was the least important. All right, Master Su Yun. Although I am a participant from Group B and cannot be compared to the existences from Group A, but to be able to fight till here, I have something to rely on. You better be careful. Zhang Jiao laughed. Yes, I will give it my all. Clang. Just then, a clear bell sound came out. As though it was striking the hearts of the four participants, the four of them moved together and attacked each other. The intense competition began again. Zhang Jiao used a bright red spear. The tip of the spear was cold. The body of the spear seemed to be dyed in blood. Every time he attacked, the spear tip would burst out with a 3-meter diameter chi shock. The power of this chi shock was equivalent to 3 times the strength of Zhang Jiao's full-strength punch. It was extremely powerful. Because of this spear's miraculous effect, Zhang Jiao had the title of Chi Shock Spear King. Su Yun had watched all of Zhang Jiao's previous matches. A few people who were not familiar with the spear would use their own weapons to block, but just as their weapons touched the spear, their bodies would be injured by the shockwave from the spear. Their weaknesses would be exposed, and they would suffer a crushing defeat. Su Yun did not fight head-on. He continued to dodge, temporarily avoiding the spear tip. He did not want to fight head-on with Zhang Jiao. Seeing that, Lu Gu, who was below the stage, laughed. This spear cannot be blocked head-on. Under the same fighting strength, regardless of who it is, Zhang Jiao will not be able to win. He can only rely on one thing, and that is speed. If he can avoid Zhang Jiao's spear tip and attack him at close range, then he'll have a high chance of winning. That's right. Su Yun's previous few matches were extremely outstanding. His advantage seems to be speed. Maybe Zhang Jiao will not win so easily. Xiao Ziru said. A few of the evaluators whispered to each other, then turned to look at Han Yuxian. To them, Su Yun and Zhang Jiao's match was just a side dish. Han Yuxian's match was the main dish. But right at that moment, a bright, cold light suddenly exploded on the stage. The four evaluators were shocked. They anxiously raised their heads to look at the stage. Unknowingly, Su Yun had already appeared in front of Zhang Jiao. With a speed as fast as lightning, no one's eyes could follow his movements. One of his hands grabbed onto Zhang Jiao's spear body. The other held onto his sword. Piercing through Zhang Jiao's chest, the white sword was dyed red with blood. Coming out from Zhang Jiao's back, the blood dripping onto the ice-cold ground. Instant kill? The four evaluators were startled. A few of the spectators who were paying attention to Su Yun were also startled. Lu Zhanyuan's eyes were wide open. He blurted out, "S so fast." "What's so fast?" The participant by the side who was watching the battle with him asked curiously. He shifted his gaze away from Han Yuxian's stage and looked at Su Yun, only to see that Su Yun had already kept his sword back into the sword sheath, while his opponent, Zhang Jiao, had long fallen to the ground with blood flowing out from his chest. What? The battle ended just like that? What's going on? Lu Zhanyuan, what exactly happened? The participant anxiously asked Lu Zhanyuan. Defeated in one move. A participant walked over from behind. He stared at the stage and said, "This man called Su Yun's speed is already extremely fast. Judging from his speed, he is at least 10 times faster than Zhang Jiao. Zhang Jiao is definitely not his opponent." "10 times?" everyone exclaimed. The majority of the spectators were focused on Han Yuxian and Chun Jialu's battle. Only a small portion of them noticed that Su Yun had already finished his battle. Disorderly exclamations started to sound out. Slowly, all of the spectators who were still focused on Han Yuxian's stage came to their senses. All of their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the person walking down from the stage. The host Zhu Wen did not even have the time to react. The four evaluators below were petrified. This speed, could it be that Su Yun had been hiding his strength all this while? Xiao Ziru muttered. Zhang Jiao did not win easily? Heh, Su Yun won too easily. Lu Gu laughed bitterly. Xiao Ziru's face was burning hot. She felt as though Su Yun's shocking move had slapped her face. The entire place was boiling with excitement. Everyone no longer focused on Han Yuxian. More and more people started to pay attention to the Group D participant who was dressed in a black cloak. Killing a Group B participant in one move? I think even the Group A participants cannot do that, right? Slowly, the entire place became more and more clamorous. Many people did not know what was happening on Su Yun's side, and more questions came out. The pavilion in the sky was still revolving, the West Pavilion. Quan Kai, if you were to fight against that Zhang Jiao, would you be able to defeat him in one move? The man sitting behind the beaded curtain asked. It's not a big problem. Well, Quan Kai cupped his fists and said, "Not a big problem? That means there's a problem?" Hearing that, Quan Kai immediately changed his words. Of course not. Although Zhang Jiao's weapon is special, his strength is not high. To defeat him, to me, is as easy as flipping my hand. The man did not make a sound. Only after a long while did he speak up. I never thought that there would be such a black horse in Group D, Quan Kai. It is not your turn yet. Go and give the order. Send people to investigate who this Su Yun is. He has an extremely high grade, concealing treasure on him. Even I am unable to see through his cultivation. Think of a way to investigate his true cultivation. Do you understand? Master, are you interested in him? Quan Kai asked in a probing manner. Not only am I interested in him, I am afraid that the other three are thinking the same thing. Stop talking nonsense. Quickly send people to do it. Quan Kai hesitated for a moment, then nodded his head. Yes, master. After Su Yun's match ended. Not long later, Han Yuxian's match was decided as well. She was not anxious to get down from the stage, but looked at Su Yun who was seated. A dense fighting intent flashed past her eyes. Su Yun did not avoid her gaze. The competition had already progressed to such a stage, there was no longer a need to hide his strength. Instead, he had to quickly end the battle and avoid getting injured. Conserving his strength was what he needed to do and prepare for the finals. The people around him were still chattering about Su Yun's speed. Even Lu Zhanyuan was grumbling incessantly in Su Yun's ears. But Su Yun did not care. He sat down cross-legged and took the opportunity to recuperate. A few participants carefully went to Su Yun's side and sized him up. Without question, the most eye-catching person in the competition was Su Yun. He had killed Dao Huang, defeated by Mu Jian, and this time he had insta-killed Zhang Jiao, who had entered the top 14. All of these shocking actions were actually done by a Group D participant. The following battles were between Hua Yishan and the representatives, so Su Yun could rest for a while. But before long, Lu Zhanyuan, who had been talking nonstop, suddenly stopped. He anxiously nudged Su Yun and said softly, Brother Su, Li Chongzai is here. Quick, soar Li Chongzai." Su Yun opened his eyes and walked along the walkway. He then heard whispers coming out from the participants. All of them were related to Li Chongzai. Seems like he is another famous person. So you're a young noble Su Yun. Nice to meet you. I am Li Chongzai. It is my pleasure to meet you. Li Chongzai walked in front of Su Yun and cupped his fists. Chapter 435. Young noble Li is too courteous. Su Yun stood up and cupped his fists. I wonder why young noble Li is looking for me. Li Chongzai laughed and said, Young noble Su. Chongzai watched the previous matches seriously. Young noble Su, you are truly powerful. Your speed is truly breathtaking. If not for Chongzai's constant training, I am afraid I would not have been able to catch young noble Su's figure. Su Yun did not make a sound and sat down by himself. Li Chongzai did not stand on ceremony. He sat down beside Su Yun and cupped his fists again, then said, Chongzai stayed in New Deer City for a period of time, and during that period, I had an argument with a few spirit cultivators and I was invited to a duel, but I did not reject them, and with a swift sword, I defeated 7 people consecutively and was bestowed with the title of Fastest Sword, which Chongzai gladly accepted. But after meeting young noble Su today, I am afraid that I will have to give this title to young noble Su. Young noble Li is too humble. I have seen your matches, and in terms of speed, you are definitely worthy of the title of Fastest Sword. Li Chongzai laughed and shook his head, then asked softly, May I ask young noble Su, where did you learn from? Who taught you such a swift sword? Hearing that, Su Yun hesitated for a moment, then shook his head and did not answer the question. Seeing that, Li Chongzai revealed a look of disappointment. I hope that in the following matches, I will be able to spar with young noble Su, since young noble Su's superiority is something that Chongzai can imagine, and Chongzai hopes to learn a thing or two from young noble Su. Li Chongzai squeezed out a smile and said, The following opponents are all extraordinary people. I do not dare to guess young noble Su's strength, but I am the weakest out of all the participants, and I do not know if I'll be able to fight with young noble Su. There will be a chance. Su Yun nodded his head. His voice was indifferent. Li Chongzai stood up and cupped his fists. Since it is so, I will take my leave first. Su Yun cupped his fists. Under everyone's gaze, Li Chongzai returned to his seat. The place regained its temporary peace. Su Yun retracted his thoughts and looked at the participants' seats. All of Group B's participants had been eliminated, and there were only 4 participants left. The Group A experts, Han Yuexian, Shen Wuya, Li Chongzai, Hua Yishan, and Jiang Qinglong. Jiang Qinglong was heavily injured. If you were to meet him in the next duel, Jiang Qinglong would definitely win, unless he still had some trump cards. The remaining people, no matter who it was, were not easy to deal with, especially the 4 official representatives. Their battle prowess was hard to estimate, but what they had an advantage over the other participants was that their magic treasures were all provided by the Chamber of Commerce, so the grade of their magic treasures was definitely not low. After staying in the ultimate martial world for so long, Su Yun had a good understanding of it. The so-called sects in this world were probably not as strong as the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce earned profound coin. In other words, they earned a huge amount of cultivation. With the support of profound coin, it could allow any ordinary spirit cultivator to grow quickly Although absorbing profound coin also required a process, but the speed of cultivation far surpassed any sect. Disciples' bitter cultivation. Therefore, even though the four representatives of the Chamber of Commerce reeked of the stench of money, no matter how strong the people present were, no one dared to offend them. This was really a world where the rich were the masters. Su Yin sighed. Brother Su. Just then, Lu Zhanyuan, who was by the side, suddenly called out. Zhanyuan, what's wrong? Su Yin asked. Lu Zhanyuan hesitated for a moment, then stood up and cupped his fists. Brother Su, Zhanyuan has a question that I have always wanted to ask. I wonder if Brother Su can answer me. What do you want to ask? Su Yin looked at him strangely. About that, Lu Zhanyuan hesitated for a moment, then asked, Brother Su, who is your master? Where? Su Yin was startled. Lu Zhanyuan's expression was serious. It could be said that there was a trace of sternness and longing. Brother Su, Zhanyuan entered the ultimate martial world 7 years ago, hoping to find power here. I have a huge grudge and hope that one day, when my cultivation reaches large success, I will be able to kill my enemies. But after entering the ultimate martial world, I have been training bitterly, and it is hard for my cultivation to improve. After so many years, I still only have this fighting strength. Brother Su, if you are a disciple of some big sect, can you recommend me? Zhanyuan will definitely repay Brother Su's kindness. With that, Lu Zhanyuan bent his knees and was about to kneel down. Su Yin anxiously extended his hand out to support him and said, Zhanyuan, don't do this. Brother Su, are you not willing to recommend me? Lu Zhanyuan asked anxiously. It's not that I am not willing, it's just that I am not a disciple of any big sect. You're thinking too much. Su Yin shook his head. Strictly speaking, I have received pointers from many experts. If you insist on classifying me as a sect, I can tell you, I am from the Limitless Sword Sect. Limitless Sword Sect? Lu Zhanyuan was startled. What sect is that? Sky Martial Continent. Sky Martial Continent. Lu Zhanyuan's eyes revealed a look of surprise. I've heard of this place before. It seems to be a low-grade human realm, right? Could it be that Brother Su came from there? Of course. Su Yin nodded his head. Hearing that, Lu Zhanyuan revealed a look of disappointment. I thought that Brother Su was a native of the ultimate martial world. That's not true. Su Yin laughed. But if you want to train in the limitless sword arts, I can recommend you into the Limitless Sword Sect. This. Lu Zhanyuan hesitated for a moment, then laughed. Forget it, Brother Su. With that, he returned to his seat and did not say another word. Seeing that, Su Yin did not say anything else. Su Yin defeated Zhang Jiao. Han Yu Xian defeated Chen Jialu, and the two of them would not be participating in the next round. What was surprising was that Li Changzai was participating in the next round. Li Changzai fought against the senior brother of the Heavy Sword Sect, Hua Yishan, while Shen Wuya fought against Jiang Qinglong. With a blade in his left hand and a sword in his right, Shen Wuya, who was nicknamed the Blade and Sword Martial Emperor, had extraordinary strength, and from the way he killed Lu Zhanyuan without using his blade or sword, one could guess his fighting strength. Jiang Qinglong, who was heavily injured, had no chance of winning, and the victor had long been decided. Thus, everyone was looking forward to the battle between Li Changzai's swift sword and Hua Yishan's heavy sword. Li Changzai's body was light and nimble. He landed on the stage like the wind. Su Yin turned to look at Hua Yishan. It was a man with a 2-meter-long and 1-meter-wide heavy sword on his back. He was skinny. His skin was dark. He had a crew cut. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s. His face had stubble, and the clothes on his body were extremely loose. It did not seem to fit him. But the name that did not fit him the most was Hua Yishan. People who did not know him would think that he was an elegant young master. He walked up the stage step by step, and then placed the sword in his hand on the ground. When the sword tip touched the stage shook intensely, as though a huge wave had struck a small boat. Li Changzai's expression did not change. He stared at the large black sword, and in his hand, he slowly raised the bamboo-thin sword. Su Yin looked at the two swords. Hua Yishan's sword was huge and thick. It did not have a sharp edge, as though it was not used to slash, but to smash people with a rod. On the other hand, Li Chongzai's sword was lustrous and bright. It was extremely sharp. The snow-white sword body gave people a feeling that they would be injured if they touched it. The two of them were facing each other, and before they even started fighting, the sword intent on the stage had already soared. The intense pressure caused the host Zhu to be unable to breathe. He anxiously jumped down the stage and hid at the side of the stage to look at the situation. Seeing that it was about time, he shouted, "Participants, please get ready." Hearing that, the two of them started to gather the spirit chi in their bodies and prepared. They were like two cheetahs that had locked onto their prey, ready to pounce at any time. The noisy competition grounds gradually quietened down. Everyone stopped their discussions and chatter and focused their attention on the stage. Dong! A loud and resounding bell sound came out. "Let the competition begin," Zhu immediately shouted. Buzz, 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 buzz. At the same time, sword hums gradually erupted from the stage. It was Li Chongzai's sword hums. Slowly, the surrounding air started to undulate with ripples. The strange ripples caused the entire place to look like an underwater world. The two of them seemed to be covered by a layer of strange water barrier, causing everyone to feel as though they were in a dream. Su Yun's pupils tensed up. This is the sword realm. The sword realm, an aura that transcended the might of the sword. Li Chongzai was currently releasing such an aura, with the intention of suppressing his opponent with his aura before the battle had even begun. People who were able to release their sword aura usually had extremely powerful sword intent. Such people had trained in the sword for many years, and their own willpower and sword intent had reached the pinnacle from the inside to the outside. They were intimately connected with the sword. Thus their aura was naturally formed very quickly. When a person was angry, resentful, releasing killing intent, it was the aura of the person, and through the sword, the aura would be transferred out, and it would become the aura of the sword. One imposing aura. Hua Yishan suddenly opened his eyes. He bellowed out, his loose robes fluttering in the wind. "Come!" Li Chongzai roared. Hua Yishan was not courteous. His abstruse eyes released a dense fighting intent. He held onto his sword with one hand, his expression extremely solemn. Nearing Su Yun, Hua Yishan suddenly released a ferocious roar. The heavy sword in his hand dropped down. The wide and thick sword tip aimed straight for Su Yun's face. Bang! Before the heavy sword even landed, the entire stage instantly crumbled. Dust flew everywhere as profound spirit chi surged. Imposing aura. It was the same imposing aura. But this was different from Li Chongzai's sword aura. It had always been reserved, and only when it was about to be unleashed would it suddenly erupt. This move, imposing aura, Li Chongzai's eyes congealed. He suddenly raised his slender sword. His arm trembled a few times. The slender sword and the heavy sword were clearly still a few inches apart, but the two swords exploded out with sparks. The explosions continued to sound out. So fast. Su Yun stared at Li Chongzai's arm with rapt attention. Although many people could not see it clearly, but he could. When the opponent's heavy sword attacked, Li Chongzai had unleashed 600 slashes consecutively. His speed was extremely fast. He knew that he was not Hua Yishan's opponent in terms of strength. Thus, he planned to use numbers to suppress Hua Yishan. With Hua Yishan's sword, he unleashed 600 slashes, and every slash would reduce a portion of the heavy sword's power. Li Chongzai used all of his strength right from the start without holding back. But what made Su Yun more concerned was that although Li Chongzai's sword speed was extremely fast, none of his swords were imbued with profound spirit chi, which meant that he was the same as Su Yun, unable to use profound spirit chi in so many attacks. Su Yun could only imbue ordinary profound spirit chi, and it was extremely difficult for him to imbue all of them. When the heavy sword neared Li Chongzai's face, the power behind it had long been dispelled by Li Chongzai. Li Chongzai tilted his head slightly and used his left shoulder to block the heavy sword, while his other hand slashed horizontally towards Hua Yishan's neck. His movements were as smooth as lightning. Chapter 436. Li Chongzai approached menacingly, but Hua Yishan was not an ordinary person. The power of the heavy sword was negated. Although Li Changzai used his shoulder to block, the heavy sword did not have a sharp edge and was unable to deal much damage to him. It looked as though it was an exchange, but in truth, Li Changzai held the absolute advantage. If Hua Yishan did not give up on attacking and defending, the slender sword blade would definitely slice off his head, but upon changing from offense to defense, Li Changzai could take the opportunity to attack other parts of his body, and Hua Yishan, who was slower, would not be able to protect his vitals, and would only be at a disadvantage. Whoosh! At that critical moment, a hand suddenly extended out and directly grabbed onto Hua Yishan's neck. Dang! Li Changzai's sword struck the back of Hua Yishan's hand, releasing an ear-piercing sound. A shallow sword mark appeared on the back of Hua Yishan's hand, but it was not cut off. Oh! Li Changzai squinted his eyes and immediately retreated, pulling apart the distance between them. Hua Yishan released his hand from his neck. He held onto his sword with one hand and looked at Li Changzai indifferently. Heavy sword, I should have thought of it. Not only do you train in Swift Wind Spirit Chi, you definitely train in True Divine Spirit Chi as well. With this Spirit Chi, your defense is definitely astonishing. Li Changzai said softly. Hua Yishan shook his head. He turned and held onto his sword with both hands and moved again. My strength is not only shocking. As soon as he finished speaking, the huge sword whizzed over like the wind. Li Changzai did not dare to clash head-on with Hua Yishan. He could only circle around him and wait for an opportunity to strike. Hua Yishan's destructive power was strong, and his defense was even more astonishing. Such an existence was like an armored lion with boundless might. Luckily, his Spirit Chi attribute was mainly True Divine Spirit Chi, so his speed was not faster than Li Changzai. If he was faster, Li Changzai would definitely not be his opponent. Speed was Li Changzai's only advantage. Among all the martial arts in the world, only speed was unbeatable. These words were not empty words. Li Changzai was so fast that he seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Hua Yishan was surrounded by a gray gale that was brimming with killing intent. The powerful sword domain was like a venomous snake staring at Hua Yishan. At that moment, he was like a turtle in a jar. Finally, Hua Yishan could not hold it in anymore. He lifted his heavy sword and slammed it into the ground. Dong! With him as the center, a wave of True Divine Spirit Chi burst out, and the Chi continued to spread outwards. Li Changzai immediately leaped up, releasing a rumbling Chi wave. His body continued to spin. Like a tornado, he swept towards Hua Yishan. The tornado exploded with a large number of sword images, causing everyone's scalp to go numb. Sword suppressing mountains and rivers. Just then, Hua Yishan bellowed. The heavy sword in his hand released an emerald green divine light. In that moment, an inexplicable and astonishing gravitational force caused the heavy sword to explode. Li Changzai was affected by the gravitational force, causing his speed to drop by more than 5 times, and the originally indistinct sword image became much easier to discern. Hua Yishan snorted inwardly. He extended out his left hand and grabbed onto the lustrous slender sword that was thrusting towards him, his other hand holding onto the heavy sword. He slashed towards Li Changzai's waist. His movements were extremely terrifying. With Hua Yishan's strength, it was enough to slice Li Changzai into 2. How ruthless! But, just at the moment of imminent peril, a sharp light aura erupted from Hua Yishan's left hand. The light aura soared into the sky and roared in all directions, giving off a feeling that it could slash through anything. Hua Yishan's left hand was instantly sliced into pieces by the sharp light aura. This light aura, could it be that Li Changzai's sword is releasing a light aura? The spectators all exclaimed out. Everyone's eyes were wide open. They did not even dare to blink as they stared intently at the stage. After breaking free from Hua Yishan's left hand, Li Changzai once again brandished the slender sword. The sword seemed to completely disregard the gravitational force from Hua Yishan. Its speed increased once again and directly pierced towards Hua Yishan's chest. The sharp sword Chi directly tore the clothes on Hua Yishan's chest, and when Hua Yishan reacted, The cold light had already arrived. He anxiously gathered all the true divine spirit chi in his body, intending to defend. But even with the true divine spirit chi gathered at his chest, it was useless. The sword seemed to be unstoppable. His chest that was filled with true divine spirit chi was pierced through like paper. Hua Yishan looked at his chest that was gradually dyed red with blood, his eyes revealing a look of disbelief. So fast, so sharp. Why is it like this? My gravitational force is actually not affecting you at all. My true divine spirit chi is actually useless? Why? Hua Yishan's mouth leaked blood as he spoke with difficulty. The reason is simple. Hua Yishan laughed indifferently. His 5 fingers moved slightly, holding onto the lustrous slender sword. He moved it horizontally to the right. Chi La. The slender sword sliced open his chest and chopped off his arm. The arm that was holding onto the heavy sword fell to the ground. Hua Yishan was crippled. Li Changzai retracted the slender sword, his left hand's 5 fingers pressed onto the slender sword's body, and said indifferently, "This sword of mine is called Blood Dance." Blood Dance. Hearing that, Hua Yishan's eyes opened wide. The treasure sword Blood Dance that sealed the towering wind divine formation? Hee, it is not unjust. My loss is not unjust, huh? Hua Yishan laughed out loud. Then suddenly his eyes turned black, his body fell to the ground, he fainted. The competition had ended, and the victor was Li Changzai. The spectators all felt that it was not enough. The spectators all around continued to discuss, but some of them still heard the words that Hua Yishan said when he fell. They immediately revealed looks of shock. Suyin also heard it, although he had not been in the ultimate martial world for long, but he had heard of a few array seals, especially an ancient array like the towering wind divine formation. It was said that the formation could break through all techniques and disregard all mystical techniques. It was hailed as a peak-grade array. Suyin did not know much about the specific usage of the array, but without question, it was a unique array that ordinary spirit cultivators could not touch. Li Changzai had the towering wind divine formation. It was most likely a simplified version. If not, he would not be able to seal it into the sword, and with his current cultivation, he would not be able to control such a powerful array. Oh, so the sword that Li Changzai used was Blood Dance. No wonder Hua Yishan lost. I heard that Blood Dance was sealed inside the sword, and is a modified version of the towering wind divine formation. Although its might cannot be compared to the real towering wind divine formation, it is not weak either, and by activating this modified version of the formation, it will allow the Blood Dance to obtain an unstoppable power, and the wielder will be affected by the formation, and will be able to disregard other people's profound spirit chi. Although the formation cannot be maintained for a long time, its might and effect is extremely shocking. Thus the thin sword Blood Dance is extremely famous, but I never expected that the sword would actually land in the hands of Li Changzai. I wonder how he obtained it. Just then, a participant in the resting area spoke to the person beside him. Hearing that, Su Yin nodded his head. It was completely different from what he had guessed, and from that, he could deduce Li Changzai's strength. Although his speed was not as fast as Su Yin did not know how fast his sword was. My current limit is 900 swords in a second. What about him? For some reason, Su Yin himself was looking forward to the battle with Li Changzai. Li Changzai left the stage and returned to his seat to meditate. He swallowed a pill and closed his eyes to rest for a moment, then looked at Su Yin. Sensing Li Changzai's gaze, Su Yin looked over, only to see Li Changzai revealing a smile. He cupped his fist toward Su Yin, then turned his head and continued to close his eyes. Hey, what do you guys think? Su Yin and Li Changzai fighting. Whose sword is faster? Decent to say that? It has to be Li Changzai. Li Changzai's nickname is Swift Sword. If his sword is not fast, whose sword is faster? But Su Yin used one move to kill Zhang Jiao. You guys saw it for yourselves. His speed is not just for show. That's right. If I were to say, Su Yin's speed is definitely faster. Tisich, Su Yin is nothing. Look at how he was defeated by Li Changzai. I am truly looking forward to the two of them fighting, but it is too dangerous. The following participants are all extremely powerful existences. If one of them is eliminated first, then there will be nothing left to watch. That's right, that's right. The spectators started to discuss. The formation seals below the stage were activated, and the damaged areas were slowly being repaired. Zhuan climbed up the stage. He looked around, then raised his chubby hand and pointed at the golden screen in the sky. Next, there are 7 participants left. They are the cream of the crop in this competition. Every single one of them are dragons and phoenixes amongst men, the elites of the elites. Han Yuxian, Shen Wuya, Li Chongzai, Kuo Quankai, Qin Si, Li Qin, Lu Lang. Out of these 7 participants, who will be the champion of the competition? Let's open our eyes and look at the big screen. The participants for the next round. Who will it be? The voices stopped. Everyone's eyes were focused on the golden screen in the sky. The golden words on the screen continued to move, and after 3 breaths of time, 4 names appeared on the screen. Han Yuxian versus New Deer Auction, House Li Qin. Su Yun versus Blade Sword Emperor, Shun Wuya. Roar. The entire arena erupted in cheers once again. Han Yuxian's name resonated through the entire competition grounds. There was no doubt that a beautiful female cultivator with a high cultivation was the dream of countless people, especially the male cultivators who had strong desires. Su Yun glanced at the scene, pulled his hood, and stood up. Crack! Just then, a light sound came out from his side. He turned his head to look, only to see Lu Zhanyuan staring straight at Shun Wuya. His 2 newborn hands were tightly clenched together because his hands were newborn. They were extremely weak. His actions caused the bones in his hands to break, but he did not feel any pain, as though he did not feel anything. Do you hate him? Su Yun asked. Lu Zhanyuan was startled. He regained his senses and looked at Su Yun, then shook his head and said, I am just not willing to lose. You still want to fight with him? Lu Zhanyuan nodded his head. In the future, I will win against him. Su Yun looked at the fighting intent and unwillingness deep in his eyes, and suddenly realized that Lu Zhanyuan was the true champion of the competition. From the start of the competition until now, he had changed greatly. He had gained a lot, and his growth was the greatest out of all the participants. He could not help but chuckle, then turned and walked down the corridor. Zhanyuan, I look forward to that day. Chapter 437. Shen Wuya was a disciple of the Violent Blade sect, and after that, he received pointers from an expert swordsman and learned a peerless sword technique, causing his blade to have sword techniques and his sword to have blade techniques. After that, he gained enlightenment and trained bitterly for 50 years and mastered the consummate technique of using the blade in his left hand and the sword in his right hand, allowing him to use the blade and sword as he wished. Fighting with him was like fighting an expert swordsman against an expert swordsman, giving off the feeling of fighting 1 against 2, causing the pressure to multiply. Along the way, Shun Wuya had won extremely easily. No one was able to last more than 30 rounds against him. Even the Group A participant from the previous round had his right shoulder chopped off in the 20th move, his lungs pierced through, and was instantly defeated. Shun Wuya held onto a green blade and a dark sword as he walked up the stage. He turned his head to look at Su Yun, who was carrying the sword sheath, and revealed a playful smile. Su Yun, don't lose here. I haven't fought with you yet. Below the stage, Li Chongzai said lightly, this match will definitely be exciting. Judge Lu Gu's lazy appearance changed. His eyes widened as he stared at the 2 stages. He looked at Shun Wuya's side of the stage, then at Han Yuxian's side. And in the end, he could not help but grumble. Why is the competition going well? Why do they have to send out 4 participants? I can't even enjoy the match to my heart's content, Sai. It's mainly because we don't have enough time. There's nothing we can do about it. The venue belongs to the Chamber of Commerce, and they were in a hurry to use it for the event. We didn't expect that we wouldn't have enough time, Lu Guifeng said helplessly. It's mainly because quite a few contestants have delayed their battles. Otherwise, there would have been plenty of time. Let them drag it out. Anyway, those guys have already been punished. This is a competition. If they don't quickly determine the winner, they will be the ones suffering. Lu Gu sneered, then changed the topic. Speaking of which, sirs, if a sure-kill move appears on the stage later, will we still go up? Hearing this, the other three did not say anything. A contestant of this level was already very close to their own strength. If they were to act, they might not be able to stop him. It would be fine if they managed to stop him, but if they failed, the judges would be the ones who would lose face. Depends on the situation. Just then, Xiao Ziru suddenly said. The other two kept quiet, silently agreeing to Xiao Ziru's words. Lu Gu smiled awkwardly and did not say a word. Crash! The black robe fluttered, and a black shadow leaped onto the stage. It was Su Yun's turn. Su Yun, good luck. Defeat Shen Wuya. Su Yun, show me your true strength. I think you should give up, Su Yun. You are not Shen Wuya's opponent. All the best, Shen Wuya. Shen Wuya, let him know the power of your blade and sword fusion. Shen Wuya, I love you. A tsunami of cheers erupted from the audience. The two had not yet started fighting, but the fans of both sides had already started a war of words. The scene was extremely lively. Many people stood up and shouted loudly. The atmosphere was set to the highest. Seeing this, Zhuan was very happy. His bean-sized eyes squinted into his fat. Then he opened his mouth and shouted, "Very good." Now, the four contestants were ready. Then, let the competition begin. Bell! Dong! The competition had officially begun. Countless people's breathing quickened as the bell rang. Shen Wuya's body sunk. He stepped forward with one leg behind him. The blade in his left hand was in front of him, and the sword in his right was behind him. He had assumed an offensive and defensive stance, but he was not in a rush to attack Su Yun. In that moment, Su Yun could feel the spirit qi around him starting to flow. The spirit qi had split into two and converged towards two different directions, which were actually the blade and sword. I hope that this competition will not be too boring. Su Yun, give me some happiness and endure for 100 rounds. Shen Wuya laughed and said, I'm afraid there won't be 100 rounds. Su Yun held onto the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword tightly. He turned his front leg and slowly took a step forward. But the moment he took that step, he suddenly disappeared. Shen Wuya's eyes tensed up. He used all of his senses to capture Su Yun's figure. He understood that Su Yun's speed was not something he could capture with his naked eyes, and the only way to capture him was with his senses. Without relying on his sight, without relying on his hearing, he could only rely on his own senses to determine the opponent's position. It was a kind of ethereal state. Shen Wuya calmed his mind and adjusted himself to his peak state and was not anxious to defend. Found you. Suddenly, Shen Wuya turned around, his blade and sword formed an X shape and fiercely smashed into the void behind him. The blade and sword released a faint green light aura. The destructive power was like a wave that shook the air and swept towards him. Dang! Just as the sword and saber were about to strike, a crisp sound rang out. Shen Wuya looked over, only to see that the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword in Su Yun's hand had firmly blocked the blade and sword. Furthermore, Su Yun's strength was extremely strong. Holding onto the sword with one hand, he was able to block Shen Wuya's hands. Shen Wuya frowned. He sensed the spirit qi leaking out from the blood-red sword, and a look of surprise flashed past his eyes. True divine spirit qi? Su Yun's sword blade was actually filled with true divine spirit qi. Could it be that he wasn't prepared to attack from the start, but to defend? Whoosh! Just then, Su Yun moved again, and his figure disappeared. Shen Wuya retreated to the side of the stage and assumed his previous posture. He closed his eyes and sensed his surroundings. Buzz, 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 buzz. Just then, sword cries came out from the front. Shen Wuya took the opportunity to slash down again. But this time, he didn't combine the sword and the saber. Instead, he went straight to the point. Dang! A clear sound came out again. The green blade and blood sword clashed. Shen Wuya's mouth raised into a smile, his right hand holding onto the sword. He thrusted towards Su Yun, who was behind the blood sword. My greatest advantage is that I have two weapons. Don't tell me you haven't realized that. Shen Wuya laughed. Su Yun dodged the nether sword and knocked away Shen Wuya's green blade, then slashed down again. But Shen Wuya used the green blade to block the blood sword. The nether sword continued to slash at Su Yun. Although he lost to Su Yun in terms of speed, his blade and sword coordinated perfectly, with both offense and defense. Even if Su Yun's sword broke through the green blade's defense, he would still be forced back by the nether sword, unable to injure the opponent. Shen Wuya's strength is truly extraordinary. It has already been the 47th round. Su Yun, are you satisfied? Shen Wuya's mouth curled. He suddenly bellowed. The blade and sword in his hands each lit up with a silver pattern. The pattern flickered a few times, and the light auras converged into Shen Wuya's hands like lightning. In that moment, Shen Wuya's hands lit up with two snow-white flames. The flames on his left hand were blazing hot. The flames on his right hand were as cold as blades. Have a taste of this. Shen Wuya slashed down with his blade. The flame at the edge of the blade burst forth, releasing 1,000 flames that smashed toward Su Yun. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately took out his 7th-tier Imperial equipment to block. Shen Wuya took the opportunity to stab the ground with the nether sword. The sword released a land of ice, causing the entire ground to be frozen. Su Yun removed the Imperial equipment, and just as he was about to counterattack, he saw Shen Wuya raising the nether sword upwards. Dong, 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 dong. The ground that was covered in dust shot out many spikes that pierced upwards like nails. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately jumped up. But right at that moment, he saw that Shen Wuya had a pleased smile on his face, as though he had gotten what he wanted. He raised both of his hands and thrusted his blade and sword towards the ground. Whoosh! A flower pattern with petals like sparks and heart like ice exploded in the sky. With Su Yun as the center, it flickered a few times before releasing a red and blue wave of chi that attacked Su Yun. This aura was unparalleled. The scene was extremely mysterious and beautiful. Whoosh! The entire field was in an uproar. A few of the spectators who were paying attention to Han Yu Xion's battle all turned to look at Su Yun and Shen Wuya. This aura is definitely a high-grade mystical technique. It is definitely a killing technique. They never thought that Su Yun and Shen Wuya's battle would already reach such an intense stage. Has the victor been decided? Xiao Ziru squinted her eyes. No one answered her. At this moment, everyone was focused on the competition. The spectators watched the competition intently. A few of the people who liked Su Yun saw the technique and became even more fearful. Lu Zhanyuan stared at the incoming wave of qi. His heart seemed to be in his throat. He even forgot to breathe. Brother Su, you must hold on. Lu Zhanyuan clenched his teeth and thought. Everyone was watching. After 7 breaths of time, the ice and fire flower in the sky dissipated and the wave of qi stopped. But after the commotion, Su Yun's figure could no longer be seen. The spectators were startled. They anxiously looked around the stage, but other than Shen Wuya's figure, they could not find any trace of Su Yun. Was he blasted to smithereens? Where is participant Su Yun? Where did participant Su Yun go? Zhu Wen shouted out exaggeratedly. His bean-sized eyes kept on looking around the stage, and when he realized that he did not see Su Yun's figure, his fat face immediately revealed an expression of extreme fear. Could it be that participant Su Yun was already killed by participant Shen Wuya? No. Just as Zhu Wen said that, a bellow suddenly came out from the stage. Zhu Wen was startled. He looked towards the direction of the voice, only to realize that the person who spoke was Shen Wuya. He looked around with his eyes. His face was gloomy. He was extremely cautious, holding onto his blade and sword. He swayed left and right, as though he was waiting for something. Seeing Shen Wuya's attitude, Zhu Wen felt that it was strange. But in the next moment, Zhu Wen understood why he was like that. A blood-red sword image suddenly appeared in the air. The sword image flew in a circular trajectory towards Shen Wuya, but it brought out 1,000 after-images. Its might was boundless as it pierced straight at Shen Wuya. Shen Wuya anxiously raised his blade and sword to block. His blade and sword quickly slashed out. The flames on the blade and sword continued to spurt out, like 2 fire dragons. The blood sword was swung wildly, and its speed seemed to have been pushed to the extreme. The nearly 1,000 afterimages actually slowly split into nearly 10,000 sword shadows. In nearly 10 breaths of time, he had launched over 10,000 attacks. How fast was this sword technique? The flames spewed out by the blade and sword were instantly shattered by the sword images. The berserk sword chi was like a ferocious beast's mouth, swallowing Shun Wuya. Shun Wuya perspired in cold sweat. The pressure on him increased. Too fast. He never thought that Su Yun's speed would be so fast. Chapter 438. Is that his limit? In the participant seating area, Li Chongzai stared at Su Yun, who was suppressing Shun Wuya with his scarlet sword, and thought. Judging from this frequency, Su Yun could release close to 700 swords in a second, which was an astonishing speed for any swordsman. Many swordsmen who focused on speed would at most be able to release around 200 swords, and it was already impossible to increase it any further. Everyone had a limit, no matter what level of cultivation, and this kind of speed had already exceeded the limit of a human by a large step. Shun Wuya was having a hard time defending. The flames on his blade and sword were almost completely destroyed by Su Yun. He was being suppressed by the opponent. The situation was extremely pressing. Fast. So fast. Too fast. So fast that his hands could not even be seen. So fast that his sword could not be seen. What kind of speed is that? What kind of realm is that? Seeing Shun Wuya in such a predicament, the entire audience went into an uproar. Everyone was surprised by the sudden turn of events. Finally, Shun Wuya was no longer silent. If this goes on, you will only lose. Su Yun, I will fight it out with you. Shun Wuya clenched his teeth, his eyes staring coldly at the man who was attacking him nonstop. Suddenly, he raised his hand and released the blade and sword in his hand, retreating backwards. He then quickly took out a finger-sized glass bottle from his spatial bag. Inside the bottle was a blood-red liquid. When he took it out, he immediately crushed the glass bottle. His right hand held onto the liquid, causing it to leak out from the gaps between his fingers, but did not drip onto the ground. Instead, it flowed along his right arm and quickly climbed up his body. Su Yun blocked the blade and sword, causing the two weapons to fly out and stab into the ground not far away. At the moment, Shun Wuya was unarmed. Su Yun was not courteous. He raised his sword and slashed down without holding back. But just then, Shun Wuya suddenly raised his head and revealed a strange smile. You think you've won? Huh? Su Yun frowned. Shun Wuya waved his hand. In that moment, the blood-red liquid that leaked out from his palm was like a lightning net, quickly enveloping his entire body, dyeing him red. When the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword struck his body, clang! An ear-piercing sword hum came out. The immortal mystical scarlet blood sword seemed to have smashed into an incomparably sturdy rock. It was unable to penetrate further. What? Su Yun frowned. Looking at Shun Wuya, who was completely unharmed, he raised his sword and slashed towards his head. Clang! The crisp sound rang out again. It's useless, Su Yun. Shun Wuya shook his head, his mouth revealing a pleased smile. I have used the Almighty Being's spirit blood, causing the profound spirit chi in my body to explode, and I am now able to use the top-grade mystical technique that my master had passed down to me, divine spirit body. The current me is an undying existence. This is my trump card. I didn't plan on using it in this competition, but I will defeat you. I will defeat you. Holy Spirit Body, an immortal being? Su Yun frowned. When the spectators saw that Su Yun's two moves were unable to injure Shun Wuya at all, exclamations of shock and astonishment sounded out. What's going on? What mystical technique did Shun Wuya use? Su Yun is actually unable to harm him at all? Shun Wuya is truly Shun Wuya. This mystical technique should be his trump card. Su Yun's two swords are unable to threaten Shun Wuya. If Su Yun does not have any more moves, I am afraid that the victor of this competition will belong to Shun Wuya. Discussions sounded out, but the competition was even more heated. Su Yun's speed and Shun Wuya's moves made the competition extremely spectacular. The corner of Shun Wuya's mouth curled up. He laughed. All right, let's not waste any more time now. I will let you have a taste of my power. With that, he raised both of his hands and quickly formed hand seals, closing his eyes and activating some sort of technique. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately raised his sword and attacked again, even using the sprite's Shadow Ring's glimmer heart-shattering sword art. The immortal mystical scarlet blood sword became extremely sharp. Then, clang, a sound came out. It was as Shan Wuya had said, he was truly an undying existence. The immortal mystical scarlet blood sword was unable to harm him at all. What is going on? Shen Wuya's hands moved. A large amount of mystical spirit qi leaked out from his palms. The spirit qi resembled spirit life qi, but was definitely not spirit life qi. The spirit qi seemed to have intelligence. It split into two and quickly rushed down the stage, quickly converging towards the two blades and swords outside the stage. When the spirit qi landed in front of the blades and swords, it quickly congealed into two blood men. They were tall and big, dressed in armor. They looked similar to Shun Wuya. They each pulled out a blade and sword from the ground, then leaped up and returned to the stage, standing in front of Su Yun. What is this? Su Yun stared at the two blood men, his eyes revealing suspicion. You will know very soon. Shun Wuya laughed sinisterly. He suddenly waved his hand. The two blood men immediately rushed forward, each holding onto their blades and swords as they slashed at Su Yun. What was even more shocking was that the two blood men's techniques were far stronger than Shan Wuya's. The one holding onto the blade was extremely powerful, able to split mountains and split the seas, while the one holding onto the sword was as fast as lightning. It was difficult to catch a shadow, one blade and one sword. They were extremely well coordinated, as though they were Shun Wuya's hands, displaying Shun Wuya's techniques to the fullest. Primordial Spirit Slash. Shun Wuya quickly formed hand seals and bellowed. The two blood men immediately held onto their blades and swords and leaped up into the sky. With their blades and swords pointing downwards, they locked onto Su Yun and slashed down. When they descended, the two of them released a large amount of blood, like two red shooting stars. Their auras were extremely ferocious. Su Yun retreated. At the same time, he released the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword in his hand and slashed towards the slower blood man. Pucci. The blood man's chest was struck, but he did not seem to know pain, nor did he know that he was injured. He completely ignored the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword attack and continued to attack Su Yun. Boom! The blade and sword descended. Su Yun anxiously dodged, although he was not struck by the blade and sword. The spirit qi that erupted from the blade and sword struck his body like steel blades, causing his spirit qi to scatter. It was extremely ferocious. The might of the spirit qi was already so strong. If he was struck by the blade and sword, wouldn't he die? Shun Wuya was currently in an indestructible state. He was unable to be harmed at all. Could it be that he had no other plans? Su Yun stared at the two blood men that were rushing over, his mind spinning quickly. Suddenly, an extremely thin line appeared in his line of sight. Because the blade and sword had landed on the ground, it had created a large amount of dust, and when the dust landed on the thread was extremely clear. There were two threads. One was connected to Shun Wuya, and the other was connected to the two blood men. Do I have to cut the thread? Su Yun's eyes flashed. He instantly pushed his speed to the limit. He instantly appeared in front of the thread, holding onto the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword. He fiercely slashed at the thread. Clang! The sword blade seemed to have slashed onto an astral rock, releasing an intense sound, but the thread was not damaged at all. Oh, you've discovered it? But it's useless. These two red threads of life cannot be destroyed. You want to break my technique by cutting them? Aren't you thinking too much? Shen Wuya chuckled. He continued to control the two blood men to attack Su Yun. But Su Yun did not dodge. He stood not far from Shen Wuya. At the moment, Shen Wuya did not have any blade or sword, but he did not dodge at all. It showed that he could not move. But he did not need to move. He was invincible. Since I can't attack him to break the technique, then there's only one way to break the technique. Su Yun turned his head, his gaze solemnly staring at the two blood men. His eyes focused on the blood man on the left. The blood man's chest had a hole, It was the injury caused by the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword. Although the blood man did not cry out, nor did he reveal any expression of pain, but from the fact that the hole had not healed, it was not invincible. Furthermore, it could be injured, just not like humans. If I kill these two blood men, maybe I can break Shen Wuya's technique. Su Yun thought. He extended his left hand into the sword's sheath, and very quickly, the Desolator was taken out. Two primal swords, the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and the Desolator. But when the formless Desolator appeared, not many people sensed it. Only a few spirit cultivators with high cultivation and equipped with scouting treasures could sense that Su Yun was holding on to something. You relied on these two things to attack me. Then, I will destroy them. You can't do anything to me, right? Su Yun stood in front of Shen Wuya and stared at the two blood men. Under the pitch-black hood, the pale white face appeared in Shen Wuya's eyes, causing him to feel extremely sinister. He took a light breath and shook his head. Su Yun, do you still not understand? You can't win this competition. You want to defeat my two divine spirit bodies? You really know how to talk in your sleep. They know all of my blade and sword techniques. Why don't you just stand there obediently and let them chop off your limbs? If you lose like that, isn't that better? Don't worry, I will not destroy your cultivation. But Shen Wuya's words did not have any effect on Su Yun. The corner of his mouth revealed an extremely subtle arc. He looked at the two blood men approaching him, and suddenly, he slowly closed his eyes. His entire body relaxed. His breathing became even. The spirit essences and profound spirit chi in his body were maintained at their most ordinary state. He no longer tried to use his spirit essences to produce profound spirit chi, nor did he forcefully use his strength. Everything returned to its most ordinary state. What is he doing? Is Su Yun truly going to admit defeat? Hey, the two summoned spirits are about to attack. Su Yun, why aren't you defending yet? I think he is at his wit's end. Shen Wuya's move is his sure-kill mystical technique. How could an ordinary person break it? If it were me, I would have long been crippled. To be able to lose to Shen Wuya's move, Su Yun is not unlucky. That's right, that's right. Some were cursing, some were shouting, some were encouraging, some were emotional. Everyone were suspicious of Su Yun's strange actions. Li Chongzai stared at Su Yun. His expression was extremely focused. His intuition told him that Su Yun would not give up just like that. Just then, Su Yun, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened them slowly. In the moment he opened his eyes, the two blood men had already rushed over. But the moment he opened his eyes, Li Chongzai felt his heart suddenly throbbing intensely. After opening his eyes, he seemed to have become a completely different person. A formless change had taken effect on Su Yun's body. Chapter 439. What's with this strange, throbbing feeling? Li Chongzai's mind was filled with suspicion. He did not dare shift his gaze away as he continued to stare at Su Yun. Only at that moment did he have the strange feeling of truly seeing Su Yun. Previously, it was as though he was looking at flowers in a fog. It was extremely unreal, but now, everything had disappeared, and everything had become real. Everything happened very quickly, but in Li Chongzai's eyes, it was not fast at all. The two blood men closed in on Su Yun, and at that moment, Su Yun also moved. He raised both of his hands and quickly struck forward. His shoulders trembled slightly. It was extremely strange. Then, his hands started to move in a wide manner. As though he was performing acrobatics, his entire body was full of openings, as though he was a martial artist that had just entered the spirit cultivation realm and was fighting. Upon seeing this strange movement, Li Chongzai was shocked. He looked as though he was petrified as he stared at Su Yun in shock. Especially his expression, it was extremely ugly. Brother Li, what's wrong? A participant who was eliminated by the side looked at Li Chongzai and asked curiously. But Li Chongzai acted as though he did not hear his question and continued to stare at the stage. Seeing Su Yun's strange movements, the spectators were all confused. What is Su Yun doing? Why does his technique look so clumsy? That's right, compared to his previous ferocious martial techniques, this looks more like a technique used by a low-level existence. Could it be that Su Yun was beaten senseless by Shen Wuya? Why is it like that? All of a sudden, the spectators started to discuss. But a shocking phenomenon occurred. The two blood men that were attacking Su Yun were actually forced to retreat in front of Su Yun's wide and open techniques that were full of openings. And when Su Yun waved his hands clumsily, terrifying spirit chi ripples erupted between the three of them. Clang, 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 clang. The densely packed sounds of bullets colliding came out. For some reason, the two blood men held onto their blades and swords as they retreated, and as they retreated, many sword scars appeared on their bodies. What? Shen Wuya was startled, but after a moment, he realized something. Su Yun's movements were wide and open. It looked as though his speed was not fast, but that was only on the surface. He was not slow, but on the contrary, he was too fast, to the point that it gave people the illusion that his movements were slow and his movements were wide open. Shen Wuya was perspiring profusely. His heart was thumping wildly. This was a state of returning to one's natural state. It was a realm from the extreme to the beginning. His speed was so fast that it gave people the illusion that he was moving very slowly. He was unable to estimate Su Yun's current speed. He was known as the Saber Sword Martial Emperor, and his own speed was not slow. However, at that moment, he could not keep up with Su Yun's speed at all. Quick! So fast! Oh my God, is this Su Yun's speed? Off the stage, Zhang Guohao suddenly stood up and said in shock, "I do not know what Quick Sword Li Changzai's limit is, but I reckon that it is only SOSO. Lu Gui Fong said softly, and with that, she turned to look at Li Changzai, and when she saw his expression, she confirmed her guess. Being fast has its benefits, but it is also not enough. If the sword is too fast, it will be hard for the spirit chi to keep up, and the might of every sword will be insufficient. Previously, although the heavy sword Hua Yishan sword was extremely slow, but the might of every sword was extraordinary. One sword was able to block hundreds of sword attacks from the swift swordsman. Su Yun's speed is fast, but he might not be able to win. Everyone, just watch and see." Xiao Ziru said indifferently. The three of them nodded their heads, agreeing with Xiao Ziru's words. The blood men were spirit bodies summoned by Shen Wuya. They were not real people and did not have any thoughts of their own. If Shen Wuya did not give any instructions, their attacks would be extremely simple, and after fighting with them for a while, they would be able to grasp their moves. The blood man wielding the sword had very few sword wounds, but its hands were already trembling. The nether sword was about to fall out of its hands, and although the green blade was extremely stable, the sword wounds on its body were extremely dense, and it was unable to hold on any longer. Seeing that, Su Yun used his strength. The immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and desolator in his hands suddenly changed directions and directly focused on the blood man wielding the nether sword. Clang! The immortal mystical scarlet blood sword unleashed 500 slashes in a row, directly knocking the nether sword away, and the desolator took the chance to slash towards its head. Pucci! Blood light soared into the sky, and a blood-red head flew out from the sky, causing the blood man wielding the sword to stop moving. Su Yun flipped his body again, dodging the blade-wielding blood man's attack. He released both swords once again. The desolator blocked the blade of the blade-wielding blood man. Using his strength to block, the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword slashed across its waist. Activating the monarch occult force, the sharp blood sword released a torrential pure, divine spirit chi. It was extremely sharp and could cut through anything. Crack! The blade-wielding blood man was sliced into two. The moment the two blood men were killed, Shen Wuya's side released the sound of porcelain shattering, causing the blood-red outer shell that enveloped Shen Wuya to split open and explode. Shen Wuya's body flew out and fiercely landed at the side of the stage. His chest heaved up and down a few times. Then he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. With his technique broken, the profound spirit chi that was being channeled into the blood man was forcefully cut off. It flowed back and clashed with the spirit essences, causing his body to tremble. If he did not spit out the blood vessels and chi channels in his body would have exploded. Seeing that, Su Yun confirmed his guess. To break Shen Wuya's technique, he truly had to kill the blood man. Damn it! Shun Wuya stood up with all his might. His steps swayed, his eyes filled with disbelief and unwillingness. He stared straight at Su Yun. He attempted to gather his profound spirit chi to recall his blade and sword. But Su Yun did not give him the chance. He moved like a shadow and instantly appeared in front of Shun Wuya, the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword directly piercing into his chest. Shun Wuya's entire body twitched. His eyes were as big as bells as he looked at Su Yun in a daze. He extended his hand out and grabbed onto Su Yun's clothes. He gasped for breath with all his might. I have fought with Li Changzai a few times, and every time I was evenly matched with him, but I never thought that I would actually lose to you. I am so unresigned. His voice gradually became weaker, and finally, due to his injuries, he fainted. The victor had been decided. Seeing that, the workers below immediately rushed up and carried Shun Wuya down. As a participant in the top 14, Shun Wuya's potential was extremely high, and they naturally could not let him die so easily. Even if his soul was preserved and his fleshly body was revived, his cultivation would drop by a lot, and he would become a cripple. The battle could be considered to be earth-shattering. It was extremely brilliant. Han Yu Xian's battle was no longer watched by many. Everyone's eyes were focused on Su Yun and Shun Wuya's battle. After all, the commotion was too big. Shun Wuya was not weak. From his mystical blade and sword spirit body and his unbreakable state, it could be seen, but Su Yun was much stronger. His unfathomable speed, his strange and hard-to-find figure, all of this proved his strength. Many people could not regain their senses for a long time. They were still immersed in Su Yun's strange movements. When Su Yun walked down from the stage, more than half of the spectators had their gazes focused on him. At that moment, in everyone's hearts, Su Yun's position was on par with Han Yu Xian and the other famous geniuses. Who exactly is this Su Yun? Xiao Ziru muttered. In the current day, Su Yun had given her too many shocks and had slapped her face more than once. She realized that it was getting harder and harder to see through the participant. Shun Wuya was eliminated. Su Yun advanced. But very quickly, explosions came out from the other side of the stage, attracting everyone's attention. Su Yun had just gotten down from the stage, but upon hearing the commotion, he immediately shifted his gaze and looked at the other side of the stage. At that moment, Han Yu Xian and the official participant from New Deer Auction House. Li Qin's battle had not ended. The other side of the stage was already covered in frost. The entire stage was sparkling. The temperature in the air was extremely low as well. The competition was extremely intense. Li Qin floated in the air. His face was flushed red. He gasped for breath as he looked down at the lady in the frost. His face was pale white, and his condition was extremely bad. Li Qin was an expert in the zither Dao. He used the zither as a weapon, controlling the zither to kill people, but he had met his match. Profound sound break. Li Qin bellowed. The 8-string zither in his hand floated horizontally in front of him. His slender hand started to move frantically on the zither. Every single string trembled, and a gray sound blade flew towards Han Yu Xian. In less than a second, Li Qin's fingers had already moved the zither a few hundred times, and a large number of sound blades flew toward Han Yu Xian like raindrops. Great spherical ice imperial technique. Han Yu Xian did not panic. She grabbed onto her slender sword and transformed. Crack! At the tip of the slender sword, a circle of snowflakes leaked out, and the moment the sound blades flew over, the strange substance quickly congealed together and transformed into a gigantic ice mirror. When the sound blades struck the ice mirror, they actually rebounded and flew back towards Li Qin. Seeing that, Li Qin's face changed. He anxiously activated his magic treasure. A 50th tier Imperial equipment was released, a red tortoise-shell chi cover wrapped around his body tightly. But he was well aware of the power of the sound blades. It was not easy for this 50th tier Imperial equipment to defend against the sound blades. After withstanding the sound blades, the 50th tier Imperial equipment started to sway and was about to be destroyed. Li Qin clenched his teeth. He kept the Imperial equipment and descended from the sky. Holding onto the 8-string zither, he started plucking at the zither again. But this time, he did not release any sound blades, but extended his leg out to support the 8-string zither, causing it to be balanced. He only used one hand to pluck the zither, while his other hand reached into a spatial bag and took out a box of black powder, which he sprinkled onto the zither. The powder covered the zither, and like ink, it spread out and dyed all 8 of the zither strings black. Seeing that, Li Qin immediately extended his hands out and grabbed onto the 8 zither strings. Staring at Han Yuxian, he suddenly released and plucked the zither strings. Ton! The ear-piercing sound of the zither came out. A circle of pitch-black sound chi rippled around the zither strings. Following that, a pitch-black figure suddenly jumped out from the ripple, as though it had already locked onto its target. Upon appearing, it rushed toward Han Yuxian without hesitation. Seeing that, Su Yun frowned. It was a black skeleton dressed in armor and wearing a helmet. Its eyes were blood red. It carried a gigantic sword on its back, and in its hands were 2 sharp bone blades. It stared at Han Yuxian fiercely. It released a mournful screech. The 2 blades slashed out ferociously. As for the pitch-black aura surrounding it, it was none other than Devil Chi. Is that a demonic being? Su Yun looked around, but realized that regardless of whether it was the spectators or the participants, no one felt startled or afraid, as though it was a docile sheep. Seems like the people of the ultimate martial world do not discriminate against demons and demons. Su Yun thought. Li Qin was forced into a corner. He had no choice but to give up on his most proficient sound attacks and use the Imperial Zither to summon existences to fight. But just by relying on that, how could he do anything to Han Yuxian? Her exquisite body turned slightly, and like a butterfly, she moved backwards, her slender fingers moving slightly. The daemony sharp ice spikes shot out from the pure white ground, directly piercing through the black skeleton, locking it in place. What? Li Qin was shocked. The victor has been decided, Han Yuxian said indifferently. She then raised her sword and rushed towards Li Qin. Chapter 440. When Su Yun was training in the Cold Hail Sword Formation, Ling Qingyu had once said that the advantage of the Cold Hail Sword Formation lay in its defense. It was versatile and could retreat to advance and defend to attack. The defensive power of the frost, bolstered by profound energy, was astonishing. Furthermore, due to the variety of frost, it could form a large shield to defend itself at any time. And now, Han Yuxian was the same. In terms of ice and frost, Han Yuxian was definitely more knowledgeable than Su Yun. Li Qin's main rhythm attack was to use his chi to attack his opponent, but he was completely countered by Han Yuxian. Ignoring the fact that Han Yuxian's unique ice mirror could reflect his rhythm attack, just her indestructible ice shield was not something an ordinary person could break through. Li Qin had placed all of his hopes on the treasures sponsored by the organization, with the intention of reversing the situation, but Han Yuxian's strength far exceeded his imagination. But come to think of it, Li Qin's strength was not considered weak. It could only be said that Han Yuxian's method was able to counter him. In a New Deer auction house's pavilion, a middle-aged man with a goatee hammered the tea table beside him and shouted anxiously, Li Qin, what about that useless Li Qin? Where's that trash? Where? Reporting to President, all of the chi channels and spirit essences in Li Qin's body have been frozen by Han Yuxian's frigid eye spirit chi. He is unable to move his entire body, and many of his spirit essences have even been frozen. He is currently recuperating in our auction house's healing room. I am afraid that he is unable to come and apologize to Master President. A man dressed in New Deer auction house attire cupped his fists and said, What? He's actually recuperating in our New Deer auction house's recuperation room? This trash really has the face to use it. The goateed man was flustered and exasperated. Sir, I ordered someone to carry him in. There are too many people in the tournament's public resting room. I'm afraid it's not good for his recovery. Recover my ass. This master spent so much money to invite him to participate in the competition. But in the end, before he even met the participant from the other 3 families, he lost to a mere Han Yuxian. Do you know how much money I've lost because he didn't get the championship? Bastard. What a bastard. Quickly throw that trash out of my recovery room. Throw him out of New Deer City. Do not allow him to take a single step into New Deer City. Do you know? Hurry. This, my lord, this doesn't seem too good, right? Li Qin's injuries are still very serious. What's wrong with that? I have the final say in New Deer City. This master has a stomach full of anger just by looking at him. This trash. This. All right, my lord, this subordinate will do it right away. Other than that, quickly hand over the information of participant Han Yu Xin to me. Han Yu Xin has not been cultivating for a long time, but her talent is astonishing. She is a person with great potential. If we can bring her into our New Deer auction house and groom her in the future, she will definitely be a person with great potential. This subordinate understands. The man bowed and cupped his fists. Then, he hurriedly bowed and left the building. The tower regained its peace once more. It rotated gently in the air above the arena. The man cast a sidelong glance at the other 3 towers through the curtains, and his sparkling eyes narrowed slightly. The match continued, but now it was nearing the end. With Li Qin's elimination, New Deer Auction House had completely lost the right to compete for supremacy in this competition. There were only 3 official contestants and 3 unaffiliated contestants left. Han Yu Xin, Li Chongzai, Su Yun, Huoquan Kai, Qin Si, and Lu Lang. In that case, the screen will start rolling again. Host Zhu, when strange cries continued to ring out. Everyone anxiously looked at the screen. The gigantic screen flickered nonstop, and after 3 breaths of time, it suddenly stopped. This time, only 2 names appeared. Qin Si against Lu Lang. When the names appeared, everyone went into an uproar. All of their eyes were fixated on the 2 towers. Official contestants against official contestants. It was not just a competition, nor was it a contest between participants, but a fight for honor between the 2 auction houses. In front of so many people, who would be stronger? Haha, this is going to be interesting. When the manager of New Deer Auction House saw the contestants, he slapped his thigh and laughed out loud. Inside the dusky valley, an emerald green figure shuttled through the dense branches on both sides of the valley. This valley was extremely unique. The center was empty and barren, but the 2 sides were lush with moss and short grass. What was even more surprising was that the walls of the valley were clearly devoid of wood, but a large number of emerald green branches and leaves grew out, as if the soil was the wood itself. The green figure moved like lightning, moving 1,000 miles in a blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, he moved from the top of the valley to the bottom of the valley, and a mystical chi exploded out, as though countless of blades and swords were slicing through the air. The vicious and sinister destructive force floated in the air and did not dissipate for a long time, causing people's hair to stand. At the top of the central part of the valley, an old woman holding a cane stood in front of a branch. When the old woman saw this scene, she nodded repeatedly. The cane in her hand moved continuously, and a gratified smile appeared on her wrinkled face. This child is worth teaching. This child is worth teaching. Yin Shan, your talent is the best I have ever seen in my life. If you are able to meet a great teacher, your future will be limitless. Ha ha! The green figure, who was by Yin Shan, stopped. She looked to her left and right, then heaved a sigh of relief. With a light step, she floated in front of the old lady like a maple leaf and cupped her fists. Senior is overpraising me. Yin Shan's speed is all because of Senior's teachings. Sai, you're too modest. There are as many disciples in my suicide valley as there are hairs on an ox, but there isn't a single one with your speed. Hearing that, Bai Yin Shan calmly shook her head. Yin Shan only came from the Sky Martial Continent, a lower realm. The ultimate martial world has many talents. How can their talent be inferior to Yin Shan's? Hearing that, the suicide witch chuckled. Whether or not it is one thing, whether or not it is good is another. Yin Shan, I've said it before, your talent is the best, but I did not say that your talent is the highest. Indeed, among my disciples, there are many who are more talented than you, but none of them are like you, who have the heart to pursue the martial path, to pursue the pursuit of power. So their talent is not as good as yours. Do you understand? Being high does not mean that your cultivation is fast. Only by being good can you cultivate fast. Hearing that, Bai Shan thought for a moment, then nodded her head seriously. Good. The old lady revealed an ugly smile. Continue training. I will get people to prepare the best pills in my suicide valley. I want to nurture you into a top talent of the ultimate martial world, and let those trash of the Emperor Palace have a look, With that said, the old lady turned and left. Bai Shan did not say a word, but her eyes shone with a blazing flame. Valley Mistress. Just then, an anxious voice came out from the end of the valley. The old lady frowned. She looked towards the voice, only to see a lady dressed in a jade-green gown quickly flying over. Nearing the suicide witch, she immediately bowed and said, Valley Mistress, there's a woman outside. She says she wants to see you. A woman? The old lady frowned. What woman? What's her name? She says she is called Long Xianli. The person said, Long Xianli? I have never heard of her. Why does she want to see me? The old lady did not understand. She then waved her hand. Chase her away. How can this old lady meet just any random cat or dog? But all these words fell into Bai Shan's ears. Upon hearing that it was clan elder Long Xianli, she anxiously bowed and said, Senior, please wait. Yin Shan knows this Long Xianli. The old lady turned her head. You know her? That's right. Bai Shan nodded her head. She is from Yin Shan's sect, the third clan elder of Immortal Sword Sect. Immortal Sword Sect? Third clan elder. The old lady thought for a moment. A light aura suddenly flashed past her eyes. Immortal Sword Sect? Isn't that Lin Shishan's sect? This Long Xianli, isn't she the woman who was with you at that time? That's right. Bai Shan nodded her head. Senior, Clan Elder Long is most likely here for Yin Shan. Can you allow Yin Shan to meet her? The suicide witch's yellow eyes turned and suddenly revealed a strange smile. Yin Shan, don't be anxious. How about this? You practice here first. This old one will go and entertain her first and ask for her intentions. If she is here to look for you, I will arrange for you to meet. How about it? Hearing that, Bai Yin Shan's eyebrows arched slightly. She thought for a moment, then nodded her head and cupped her fists. I will have to trouble Senior. All right. Suicide Witch laughed, then spoke to the people beside her. All of you stay here and accompany Yin Shan. This old lady will be back soon. Yes, Valley Master, everyone replied. This old lady laughed, then turned and flew away. Suicide Valley's terrain was unique. It was filled with traps and was the most mysterious place in the Emperor Palace. Suicide, which was a crafty person, she had done many evil deeds, offended many people, and had enemies all over the world. If not for this special valley that she had meticulously created, Suicide, which would have long died. After leaving the mystical Green Valley, the old lady entered a gigantic and dark green tree trunk. The tree trunk was extremely wide, and on both sides, there were many wooden houses. All of these houses were supported by array seals and were built on the walls of the tree. It was extremely mystical. When the old lady passed through the place, many men and women walked out of the houses and greeted the old lady and shouted, We pay our respects to the Valley Master. The old lady did not even look at the disciples and directly walked towards the largest building at the top. This Long Xianli, her talent is not bad, although she's not like Bai Yin Shan who pursues the martial path to the extreme, but she is still a genius. The old lady muttered. Very quickly, she entered the hall. At that moment, in the middle of the Suicide Valley's main hall, there was already a beautiful lady dressed in white. The lady had a small mouth, willow leaf eyebrows, her hair was like a waterfall hanging down to her waist, her figure was extremely well proportioned, her skin was white and rosy. Any man who saw such a lady would be moved. It was a kind of heart-throbbing, a kind of beauty that came from a realm that could not be replicated. Just that at that moment, the lady's face had a trace of worry. The beautiful lady's eyebrows were tightly knitted, giving people a different kind of beauty. The old lady entered the hall and carefully looked at the person, then nodded her head, her face revealing a look of admiration. Good, good, good. The old lady said good 3 times in a row. Hearing that, Long Xianli immediately turned. Seeing the old lady and the group walking into the hall, she immediately bowed. Long Xianli greets Senior. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.